What is up, everybody? Welcome on in. This is the AML Finals. Glad to have you guys here. This is going to be an absolutely amazing day. I am here on the analyst desk with August. August, how the heck you doing today, man?
We're doing pretty good, man. I had a good, nice lunch. Getting ready for not as many games as usual, which is nice. 6 games today. Final 8 players. I'm more than excited to see how these final 6 games shake out. It's going to be hopefully the tightest, most crunchy, sweaty games we've seen all set, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. They should be tight. They should be close. We got the best players from the AML. Some of them might even be the best players in the ACL. They stepped over there, they played, and they won. So, I don't know about that. But looking at this lineup, August, who are you thinking? Do you got a front runner here? Do you got people that you're looking out for? Maybe a dark horse?
I think that if you're just looking at the last 2 weeks of playoffs, you have to mathematically assume that Owen's going to put down a star performance. You know, I mean, some people say you get nerves at the end, but he's week over week after week consistently top 4, mostly top 2. It's hard to root against him, you know?
Yeah, it really is. Owen is quite the good player. There is somebody on this list, though, I've been rooting for or calling out, saying that they're going to be the best since week 4 of the regular season, and that's Gagamo. And I think I'd be remiss. I think that's the correct terminology, anyways. If I didn't choose them to move forward, I think they have to win it. But look at this list. You got Dark Horse, and let me transition on over so that people can see what we got going on here. Oh,
a dark horse for this group. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. All of these people have put up pretty solid numbers, you know, every week. That's why they got here, right? I would say, though, I would be pleasantly surprised and quite proud if PH Dan came out, because he's had some struggle weeks for sure, dropping into Group C both playoff weeks. So we can buy every single time with some pretty clutch performances. It would be pretty pog if he ended up winning everything from that position. But then you can't count out people like Dark Makaki and Ragunas, who've also had some pretty consistent top 2s over the course of the last few weeks. So it's going to be, I mean, and of course, everyone, I mean, you could talk about every single player here a little bit. I'm excited to see what really happens, though.
Definitely, you know, player I do want to call out, PH Dan, like you said. Now, I was in a chat room with PH Dan earlier today. He did inform me that he will be going 8-8-8-8-8-8-8, all bottom. And so I did want to call that out. Make sure everybody knows he is bottoming out. I did call this out last time, and he pulled through. So you're welcome, Dan, on your first place finish. That's just the way it's gonna happen. I'm gonna tell you you're gonna lose. You're gonna come in first. So PH Dan's gonna be my dark horse moving forward. But August, we got some extremely exciting games going to happen here, and we got some cool cats. We're gonna be able to take us into game 1 to get the excitement underway. Again, apologize for a little bit of the delay here, but Protroid, Dot, welcome on in. Go ahead and take it away, guys, for game 1.
Hello, and welcome to the finals of the Aegis Marauder League. I am Protroid, this is Dot, and we got a lot of fun TFT to play.
Yeah, I'm really excited, Protroid. You know, we've had a set full of great games all coming to this final culmination of a finals weekend, and I'm really excited to see how these players play, how they adapted to a quick meta shift over the past week. You know, the patch coming out on Thursday into games on Saturday. Not much is solved, and I think that makes it a lot more interesting to see what people will do.
Yeah, there's a lot of experimentation that we're still seeing players do on ladder. I expect that we're going to see that contend into our lobbies today as a meta sort of forms inside of our own tournament. And just generally, to highlight all of these players, it's incredible to see what they've been able to do sort of through the entirety of this set leading here. Remember, at this point, if you were here, you played a minimum of 5 weeks, 6 if you were in the lower half to the week 1 in playoffs and didn't get the bye. It is an incredible amount of TFT to play, and they're just getting started.
Yeah, it's an incredible amount of TFT, and with that comes an incredible amount of improvement. So we've seen, some players have gone from, low masters to mid masters or GM through the set. Some players have even gone to challenger and really high challenger. We've seen Owen 9842 as well as Dark Makaki both ascend to that next level of challenger. And I think they can show that in these games. I think that they are consistent players who play the game extremely well. So I'm excited to see how those two players fight against each other.
Yeah, they are certainly the favorites, I would say, going into this. If you look at Owen's history in previous weeks, I usually talk about how there's a meat shot you want to go for in order to advance. And usually that's going in the 3rd to 5th place range. You look at Owen's scoreline, they sort of be sitting around the 1st to 3rd place range. So they're not just looking to advance, they're looking to try to get these safe wins and hopefully today be able to transfer that into some good prizes.
Yeah, and we know Owen just won the weekly tournament on Thursday, so he's in form. He's ready to play on this new patch. These new basically changes to the meta, where AP is a lot stronger before. The coveted Gunblade is not nearly as good as it was before, compared to something like the Hodge, which is like the Hand of Justice, which is much stronger and almost best in slot on every unit.
Now, talk to me a little bit about what we're seeing on Xanazurge's board right now, because to me it looks like they're setting things up pretty generically. They have a good defender front line, which is one of the best front lines you can find in the early game for TFT, but still looking for that direction.
Yeah, still looking for that direction. He got dropped a Sona last round and decided to sell it. Something that I thought was a little interesting, seeing as, when you get a Sona, there's a pretty high chance you're looking for underground at that point. But he gets dropped a couple good items here, and when we see a few interesting augments.
We see a few interesting ones. The one that piques my attention immediately, though, is that Gadgettine Crest, which... they're hovering. What are you thinking they're thinking right now?
I'm thinking they're looking to take it. They find another Annie and another Poppy here. We just saw Moldiver Maniac, however, hit an Annie 2 on the right side of the board. So either he's going to be contested for that Gadgettine Crest, or he's going to be contested on this AP line. Another good thing about this AP line is that since he got dropped a tier, it's a lot more... capable of getting that blue buff for that Shojin. And we swap over to PH Dan's board, and he took Metabolic. So what do you think he's going for here?
Well, I don't know. I see some supers, I see some mascots, and I see a Yuumi hanging out on this board right now. So all those things together seems to be that level of AP composition that we're pretty used to at this stage. The thing that always makes me feel a little bit nervous about it, though, is that if you're not able to hit early, you can start bleeding pretty profusely. But that's why I like this adaptation of slamming items.
Yeah, I do like the idea of slamming items. With Metabolic, he shouldn't really be able to win a couple of these rounds. It'll be a little scary with having 4 units in against some of these level 3 players. This board that he's fighting against is pretty strong, but it looks like he's actually going to win. I can't really tell he's going to lose. He's going to lose, yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, that's the confirmation. Moldiver also picked the Gadgettine emblem. That is, I feel like at this point, one of the strongest augments that we're seeing in the meta right now, just because, remember, it's letting you skip ahead with the Gadgettine trait, but also it's counting as an item for Gadgettines as well. So you just slot it on any unit, it automatically gains that initial 3% bonus damage and resistance.
Yeah, it's an extremely strong change. Mortdog hinted at it in the patch beforehand with the changes to Gadgettine, that Gadgettine Crest would be offered as a gold tier augment now. And we've seen that it is an extremely strong adaptation. I've heard of a few players taking that Gadgettine Crest and going and playing set with it. It's an interesting way. You can kind of play a lot of different things. There's also the chance of, an Annie augment with Reflector Shield. I saw a few people talking about that. Not that I'm 100% sure it's too good, though.
There is certainly, this is what we were talking about before, too, right? Like, everyone is playing around with different ideas. They're trying to figure out what their place is in the meta right now. We don't expect to see anything super set in stone, but we are expecting to see players sort of experiment, LARP around a little bit, and figure out what the next big thing could be.
Yeah, I think the best part about it is, unless you're playing a reroll comp like Yuumi, which Dan most likely is here, it's extremely flexible. You see, people taking Gadgettine Crest and that locks them in. But other than that, Aegis Crest is extremely flexible. Jeweled Lotus is flexible. We see Second Wind as well. So there's a lot of opportunity to slam items in the early game with Hand of Justice being good that allows you to just play whatever you want and whatever you hit on stage 3 and 4. Me personally, I like playing an AP flex line that is either the Kaisa variant or you have the Ox Force Renegades with a Talon reroll. And I'd like to see someone today play Camille reroll. It is It is probably my favorite comp on the patch. It's really strong if you can get the 45% AD at combat start admin or the augment. We'll just have to see. It looks like no one in this game is really set up for it. Most people are playing the AP route. And we're seeing people actually make some really interesting decisions. I don't know whose board it was that took Aegis Crest, but the fact that it'll counter a lot of these AP boards is a immediately good decision by someone there.
Yeah, I like that too, because again, it's looking at what we know so far. It's knowing that the sure shots have been nerfed, knowing that more and more people are looking at these AP boards, trying to plan around that preemptively to what they think the lobby state is going to be. I really like seeing that just generally. So that's all well and good. The other thing I really quickly want to call out is Coach Mac. They've decided that they want to go for the cluttered mine. They're going to be shooting up in levels, and let's see if they'll be able to turn that into some early access to some later cost units.
Yeah, Cluttered Mind was buffed, I believe, last patch, and it's much, much stronger. It is returned to the form it was in set 7 or 7.5, where it was giving you 4 units, and that allows you to get on that level curve a good amount earlier. It's basically adding 4 gold, but having it be guaranteed 4 1-cost units is essential.
Indeed, it is. Gagamo, by the way, finding a Zoe, but also not quite putting it in just yet. Still trying to figure through what this board is going to look like. Has a pretty good way of playing strongest board, though, right now. The blue buff on the Lux should be enough to offset that tactical miss that she's quite good at, I think. But right now, again, this is just feeling things through if I'm Gagamo.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out, we saw as that carousel finished, on the right side, Rogunas hit a Kaisa too. On that carousel, there was a Kaisa with a bow. So I'm thinking Rogunas, has already committed to playing that line of Kaisa and is going to be a force to be reckoned with in this lobby.
Yeah. Another thing I actually want to talk about for Gagamo is that there's Lucent Singularity going wide, just as predicted. This is also going to be the crit augment that I always forget the name of for some reason at the most crucial of moments. This is something that was previously seen deeply in the AD tree, but now with AD going down, it could be seen back to its original home in the AP side of things.
Yeah, it's a little unfortunate that he hit Jeweled Lotus with a glove on bench and a rod as well. So he can't really slam that Jeweled Gauntlet. It loses a lot of value when you don't get the stat of allowing you to crit. But as he hits Belveth, I'd like to also point out Belveth is a great Jeweled Lotus holder, can also play around blue buff, and is just overall extremely strong. I would even value Belveth higher than the Lux at this point. Lux is a little too inconsistent, like you said, right? You sometimes miss those singularities. Sometimes they're amazing and they can hit all 3 units like it just did. But then as soon as units start to move, it's just so inconsistent. Whereas, you can get other units that are actually strong compared to Lux.
Yeah, and this is also, again, the benefit of being dropped this Belveth early, because remember, this is 2/6 and Belveth is a threat. Belveth is a threat that's designed to be just, I'm the aggressive, give me something, and I will put out for you attack speed carry. And as a result of that, you can see some pretty scary scenarios fold.
Yeah, and we see Coach Mac taking that first cash out, getting some gold here, and really is extremely rich. Unfortunately, though, for them, it looks like they took 4 losses and then won that 5th round. Unfortunately, that will hurt their econ just a little bit, but it looks like they're in a fantastic spot with Cluttered Mind here. Another thing about Cluttered Mind is it no longer works on PvE anyway, so you don't need to hold the full bench. You can make econ if you need to, which we see Coach Mac do here.
Yeah, and Coach Mac even hovered over the augment too, just to make sure that we knew what we were doing too. So honestly, good on them. That's a pretty exciting thing to see. They also level aggressively here up to 6, just again, trying to force through every little advantage that they can.
Yeah, I like this play style of playing underground and preserving HP through just having more levels than everyone else because of Cluttered Mind. It allows you to, get some extra gold, be ahead of the leveling curve, and not lose too much HP.
And wait a second, Xanasurge already has a Zoe too. So again, we're talking about some of these early free costs that are popping off here. And now we get to see how these two streakers are going to go against each other at this stage. Zoe is incredibly powerful with the bubbles, doesn't quite have all the itemization priority, but does have the stall thanks to the front line that's doing an absolute ton of work. On the other side, though, Deathblade is doing a ton of work on the Ashe. It's going to be a war of attrition, but I think it's going to be the Croc.
I'd like to note as well that Xanasurge kept in Gadgettine and Brawler, and we have a high chance here for a hero augment. So he might be looking for the Lee Sin augment, the Cleansing Safeguard, or the Double Bubble. He already has Zoe with a blue buff. It's extremely powerful with both those options.
Well, there's only going to be one shot at a free cost, so if they roll for it, they have to be very careful.
Yeah, and I'd like to also note, so we see here it's a 2-cost, and a 3-cost. We found out recently that because of that, the third slot has to be a support augment. And he's looking, and he does not take the Cleansing Safeguard route. Okay.
Yeah, and Sleepy Time was actually the augment that was picked. So this isn't going to be the double bubbles flying around absolutely everywhere. Instead, these units are going to get stunned up at the start of the fight. I do like it. It's a good slowdown tactic, but some people do seem to be a little bit pessimistic about it.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of it. I really like it in the comps that you actually utilize Hacker more in, because you'll stun the backline. If you have a Zed or you have a LeBlanc that's trying to do damage to that backline, it won't get burst down immediately. Whereas when you're doing this, it's just simply I want to have less damage output on their side for about 4 seconds. And with that, I can get an advantage and win the fight. Here, it looks like it's going to be doing a lot of work against this board from Dark Macaque.
Now, what are you thinking about itemization for Xanasurge right now? Because I'm looking at their bench, I see a Jeweled Gauntlet. That is something that would be great for the Zoe, just being able to take advantage of those raw stats. Are you thinking about slamming it, or at this point you're trying to hold out for something better?
At that point, I would be slamming it. I'd be intrigued to see why he's thinking he's not. I see that he also has the open vest on the Poppy. My guess is that he wants to be able to utilize all of his Gadgettine items on the Zoe if he gets 2 damage items like a GS and a Shojin. The other option, though, I really think that I would most likely have done is just slam the JG and slam the Titans just to get immediate value. He might be also waiting till after Carousel, because with this comp you really need MR Shred, and so half of the Ionic Spark or half of that Static Shiv could be open options as he doesn't have perfect pick order here. So he might just be waiting to get that MR Shred and playing a little bit more on the safe side of things.
Yeah, again, you do want to try to make sure that you're able to have as greedy plays as possible at times, but you have to be also worried about the other sides of your economy, your health, and all that. Things are looking pretty good for Xanasurge right now. It seems like a lot of the fights that they've had recently, they've won pretty convincingly, or they've lost very closely. You remember the one against Owen early on as we're entering into this next carousel round.
Yeah, and I'd like to note, I think I just saw Owen's board was a Vayne board, and it was not spread shot. It would have been Into the Night. So that Vayne with a BF sword on Carousel might be pretty solid. There are a few other options we might see Xanasurge take here with the interesting take to take a Bramble, it looks like. What do you think about that, Protrade? Is that a confirmed Bramble for his team?
I'm still trying to piece that together myself. Like, don't get me wrong, Bramble is just generally a good item slam. It's going to be a little bit less priority because you don't see as much AD anymore. It's going to be a little bit lower priority because the crit isn't also as powerful as well. But again, that will still be useful no matter if the lobby's playing AD, AP, what have you.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see where he's going here. I think part of it is that, he's not really weak. He has a 2-star 3-cost on his board. He has a Sedge with Gadgettine and Gadgettine-powered Warmogs. He can just wait to slam to see. He doesn't really need to slam items here. He should be strong enough to streak into stage 4 without having to slam anything else, especially with just up 2 items with his augment and traits.
Yeah, Dan is looking like they're in a bit of a rough position, though. It seems like they tried rolling a bit after getting the augment in order to find these Yumis, wasn't quite able to get what they were doing. The end result was a board of 6 units with 4 being slept immediately thanks to the Zoe augment and not really having enough gas in the tank to get good damage out against Santa Search. Once more, though, I do have to say, their augment is going to be keeping them alive a little bit longer thanks to that residual health.
Yeah, definitely. That augment is going to keep them alive longer. But we're going to take a quick look at Dark Makaki's board, who is that person who took Aegis Crest. Let's see how it's actually treating them right now. Not too great on the HP side of things. 58 HP going into Wolves with a 4-loss streak. We'll see if he can turn that into a 5th loss here. Do you notice anything?
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you notice anything? Because there was a 2-star unit that usually you don't see at stage 3-6, the Talia, I believe.
Oh, was it a Talia? I missed that if there was one while he was scouting.
Yeah, absolutely insane. Also buffed up with a Gastine item too, but we'll focus on that as we're looking in other places later. Roganus, by the way, they have been also looking for these Kaisa, have 5 of them to their name right now. So it's a lot of power in their corner, but it seems like, as we were talking about, Recon is still an attractive pick in terms of comp viability. A lot of people are going to be looking at it, and we don't want to see anyone holding hands here.
Yeah, it doesn't look like anyone's really holding hands. Rogunus has, I think, 6 Kaisas at this stage of the game, and we're going to see Dark Makaki roll a bit on neutrals, try and get, a couple upgrades. He's only losing 1 econ here, and before the rest of the lobby starts rolling for their upgrades, it's pretty smart, I think.
Yeah, it's one of those time management sort of things too, right? Like, yes, you're going to be losing on the 1 gold, but if you're able to sneak ahead of one other person, have the chance of hitting it, or heck, just, getting a golden orb full of gold to make this whole point irrelevant, that's all good stuff at your corner.
Yeah, exactly. And now he's going to, I assume, roll a bit here. You kind of have to when your board strength was so low and you have so much gold. We see him get a huge Sejuani 2 upgrade. As well, he gets Prankster in. It's a good bit of upgrades, but unfortunately his damage dealer is still a Sivir 2. At this stage of the game, he's got a lot of frontline, but it might not be enough backline just yet.
Also sold the Syndra, and don't get me wrong, Syndra isn't exactly the first thing everyone thinks of when they say, oh wow, I hit a 5-cost carry at level 7. It's not the best, but it is still an extra unit that can throw in additional bodies to help stall out some of these fights. Is there a world where you try to keep that?
It's tough. With the spot that he's in, I wouldn't even hold it. I think Syndra gains a lot of value when you have a lot of good units on your bench, but at this point in the game, he doesn't really want to hold those good units on his bench. He doesn't have the ability to. He kind of just needs to put in strong units like a Sejuani 2, a Jinx 2, getting in Sure Shot for this Sivir here, and we'll see what augment he takes here to try and buff it up. But he has 2 frontline augments, right? He has Aegis and he has boxing lessons. So I would imagine with that, he might be looking at an Ascension or a Portable Forge to try and boost up that damage after the frontline is tanked for a while. He has the Last Whisper already slammed, so the best thing he could probably get from a Portable Forge is an Infinity Force, not a Black Cleaver. I would think he's looking towards Ascension here. We'll have to see what he ends up deciding.
Yeah, took the words right out of my mouth. Even though both of them can give you more offensive flex options, Pro Force at this point seems very limited, and you're rolling for a specific. So Ascension is going to be the pickup there. We did really quickly go over to PH Dan's board for a second. I believe they didn't quite hit the Yuumi 3 just yet. They just hit a second Yuumi 2. So again, every little bit helps at this stage, but we're going to keep seeing this song and dance play out over and over with them being stunned up. And now that Talia 2 is going to be able to take full advantage of those clumped units. It's impossible for this cat to do anything.
Yeah, it is impossible for this cat to do anything. I will say, though, PH Dan, he has, his metabolic accelerator. He's not that low on HP, 54 on 4-2 with a lot of upgrades to be had. He's 3 off of Yuumi. And the real important one is 3 off of Nyla. When you have Nyla 3 in this comp, as long as he has a Redemption and maybe a Spark, he is going to be in a fine spot. And he's getting good shots. Like, he will hit eventually, surely.
Surely, but
surely he'll hit.
I hate to give these caveats, but again, it's a scary place to be in. They're getting good shots, but if those start to dry up, if they start having, I don't know, a bit of that mort dog luck, as the kids like to say, the problem that they're going to run into very quickly is that they don't have the gold to roll. Their health is going to start taking bigger and bigger hits as they're going later and later into this game. I would just be increasingly concerned if I was Dan.
Yeah, I would be increasingly concerned. There's not much he can do about it, though. With 2 gold, it's really just up to him to position as well as he can here. Try and be on the correct side, which unfortunately in this case he's not. And against Phony frontline, it's a pretty tough matchup for Yuumi. But he's doing a lot of good killing. This cat is doing a lot of damage, getting it to only a 3-unit loss against what I would argue is probably the strongest board in the entire lobby right now. Besides maybe Dark Macaque, who has rolled a good amount of gold on 7.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like part of that too is that PHJan hasn't fallen victim to the best in slot mentality that can sometimes befall players, where this isn't exactly the 3 perfect items that I would put on my Yuumis, but they seem to be doing a good job of just, again, slamming, making sure they have power to preserve health.
Yeah, and we see him get a force of nature here, a tactician's crown. That'll be pretty strong here. You immediately get the value of putting in that second Nyla. You can choose to put in your Riven now, which will give you Brawler and Defender. But the real value is in getting another Nyla in here. And he's starting to hit some really big upgrades with pretty much every unit in his shop being valuable.
Yeah, I gotta say, it's, again, a pretty exciting thing to see. Closer to the Nyla 3, getting another Lee Sin. That's the first 3-star that we have to call it as well. So Supers is going to start ticking higher and higher for this Yuumi. It's going to be doing crazy damage.
Yeah, and I think this is PHJan's way of saying this lobby is on a timer. You guys can try and kill me, but if I get these 3 stars, everyone's losing. Maybe not this Aegis board. This 4 Aegis board might have the ability to beat it.
This board does look pretty dang tough for them. And again, Dark Macaque has a lot of good stuns at their disposal. They were able to get a full team stun with the Sejuani that was going to prevent anyone from doing anything. And then you have the ability of the Leona already gotten here in order to make sure you're able to whittle through all those strong defenses that Anila's known for.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see Owen decides to put in, I don't know what unit he ended up putting in, maybe a second Lee Sin 2 over that other Nyla 2. I think part of what's so good about Nyla and double Nyla is that one heals the other and then the other heals the other and the whole team ends up getting full healed, but we see a huge upgrade here. Okay.
Yeah, the cat is back, everybody. So again, we have another 3-star. The carry is 3-star as well. It's all exciting stuff to see. At this point, I think he just rushed to 7, right? You have, at this point, 7 of your Lee Sins. You're probably going to find the other 2 fairly naturally. You really just want to see if you can increase your Nyla odds.
Yeah. Part of what is the issue with doing that, though, is rushing to 7 here. Unless he can econ up in a major way, it's better to just roll for 2 Nylas on 6. You have more gold to roll with, and the odds don't change that much from 6 to 7 for those 3 costs. So it depends on if he hits another Lee Sin, hits a couple more Rels. My idea would be just send it on 6 one more time and see if you can hit. But it looks like his upgrades have provided enough strength to his board to actually win some rounds here.
Yeah, PHJan has to be pretty happy about that. One more thing to call it, though, with those upgrades, though, is that Yuumi no longer has one of the 4 lowest HP totals on that board, meaning that your 2 players that are running the Sleepy Time bubble for their augment aren't going to be able to put the Yuumi to sleep. So that means she's going to be able to start rolling as soon as the fight starts, and she's still going to be protected by her now snoozing frontline.
Yeah. The Yuumi has probably like 2,000 HP. That's easily enough. Once we see, a couple more upgrades come in, it'll start to get stunned again. And there's no such thing as a trap claw anymore, so you can't build that. But, I think with that comp anyway, even if your Yuumi is stunned for an extra 4 seconds, once you have that Nyla 3, you don't really have to worry about getting burst down in that time. That Nyla should heal you up because it's not going to be one of the ones that is stunned. And I think overall, this comp should be able to, the Yuumi comp should be able to beat some of these Zoe comps until the Zoes are 3-starred.
Yeah, and meanwhile on Xana's search board, they're just trying to figure out what their next steps are going to be here. They've been running a lot of gadgeting. Don't get me wrong, that is going to be useful in this early to mid game, but because you don't have anything like, for example, that late game Nunu or to really cap off your board, you really are just sort of in the ether right now, and I think that could be why we're seeing them beginning to flounder.
Yeah, definitely in the ether right now. Not too many Zoes to their name. Unfortunately, they only have 5, need 4 more to really spike. And it looks like they did kind of greed for a couple items. They really wanted the Morello on the Zoe. But despite that, even though you have the Morello, it's not quite enough chip damage to take down a Set and a Zed with an Edge of Night who just cleanses all of the Zoe damage off of it. So we'll have to see if Xanazurge can mount a comeback here.
I think Xanazurge also may be feeling a little disheartened because so many of the Zoes that they were trying to roll for, it looks like, were taken away out of the pool already by just, again, other players looking to roll that instead. So that's going to be much more difficult for them to hit a carry.
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate. I don't know. I think there's one other Zoe player, but the issue with it is that someone else is rolling for the Kaisas and the Veins. You really, and the Ramesses, the Cho'Gaths, maybe even the Riven. I think they took that augment. And so a lot of those should be out of the pool. So, you think, okay, I'm playing Zoe. Like, I should be able to hit this 3-star somewhat easier than other people are going to hit their 3 costs. Unfortunately, that's just not the case for Xanazurge here. It happens. We'll see if he can do something else this game, but if not, take it out of your memory and run it back, basically.
Take a look over their Owen side of things, though. They're running a Belveth 2 here, have a lot of pretty incredible items on it. Yes, Hodge is no longer going to be... Hodge is now unseated, the Hextech Gunplay, which was previously the big bad item that everyone wanted in their AD comp, but Belveth still makes incredible use out of it thanks to her attack speed.
Yeah, Belveth is extremely strong. Oh.
Yeah, sorry. Gagamo, what are you doing there? You got a crab with a couple of extra Shojin claws?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. I would expect this to cast within an instant with a bunch of AP, maybe farm 10, 20 gold, maybe an item here or there. But Gagamo looks like he's in a pretty good spot. Not many more upgrades to be had. Maybe those 2-star 5 costs, and then that Echo 2. But for now, I think you just avoid rolling. You see if your board can win some rounds, and a huge insta-kill on the Belveth.
Yeah, and this is the thing that I was actually worried about, though, because this isn't just a Belveth board. It is a Belveth Zed duo carry, so if one gets taken down, the other is still able to play somewhat effectively. There's enough stuns, though, I think, with the Alistar. There will be a delay, but even then, the Edge of Night on Zed, best in slot item, further combined with the even edgier Vayne augment, those things are going to make it even harder to pin down.
Yeah, do we know how many hackers were on Owen's board there? It looked like his Zed was healing an incredible amount. That might have just been thanks to Thrill as well as having that Hodge on it. If not, it looked like it was healing enough to out heal the Taliyah ult damage, which makes the matchup pretty much unplayable for Gagamo. Even if he correct sides Taliyah, even if he avoids everything Owen does, it's pretty hard to outmaneuver a Z2 and a Belveth 2.
Not to mention just the fight RNG too, because remember, Zed's going to be jumping behind his opponent. If he lucks out, if he's able to sort of just go, hey, wait a second, I'm going to go over here out of the direction of the wall, that also reduces that Taliyah damage. I feel like we're just trading 1-star Guardian for another as you level up from Lux to the Taliyah in the first place. Don't get me wrong, Taliyah is much harder to miss than Lux, but it's still possible at the end of the day.
Yeah, it is still possible, especially against units like Zed and Belveth. It happens pretty often, especially against Zed and Belveth both kind of jump, and when they're jumping, if the Taliyah casts at the same time, it will pretty much always dodge. The same thing happens against the Viego board, but we're seeing a mirror matchup here, Protroid. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and tons of damage go down too. We saw a pretty rare thing where the Prankster pops, however, the Zoe dies instantaneously thanks to the huge amount of damage. It's not going to be enough for this Taliyah to live, but when Gagamo is able to get the Taliyah to cast, it is destroying boards. Looking to the right side of your screen, though, Raghanis is out. Xanazurge is falling close behind, but still clinging on at 1 HP.
Yeah, I'm surprised Ragunis is already out of the game. It looks like that Kaisa Vayne board just couldn't get online. I saw he got the Rammus 3-star and I think the Cho'Gath 3-star, but maybe lost a little bit too much HP in stage 4. And unfortunately, it looked like he also had to take the Riven augment with that board, which isn't nearly as good as even one of the threat augments or multi-shot or spread shot, because it was the 2 cost, 3 cost. So kind of a little bit of a Mort Dog situation there, but it happens.
Yeah, Xanazurge, by the way, also getting more dogged. 1 off on the Zoe away from the Zoe Free, so that would be fairly rough. We'll have to see if that's going to be enough here against this fight. Zet is still going to be the same pain that he was previously, though, so we'll have to see if there's been any other change, if the Ghost board might be able to delay the Zed any amount of time to get things going, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. Stwani's doing what she can to stall. You have actually, wait a second, Samira dies at the last second. Zoe bounces away. We might be able to see something huge, and we do not.
It was so close. It was maybe 200 HP, maybe 10 HP even. It was so close. Unfortunately, they do not get it. We see PH Dan's board here. He's pretty strong. He's 1 off Nyla 3. He's got that Riven now for Brawler Defender. Got an extra Soraka in there for fun, I guess. And he swaps over. He's looking to play 5-star Guardian here. Really bring that Yuumi comp online. When everything is casting so often, it is, without CC, I would say impossible to kill the units.
Yeah, and I like this adaptation too, right? Like, this Yuumi doesn't have a blue buff. As a result, it's harder to gain mana like that. So being able to slow down Star Guardian for more consistent cats in that regard, I'm sorry, I have cats on the brain right now, evidently. Being able to do that is going to be enormously helpful. Of course, you do get a blue buff now just to taunt you a little bit, but that's just the way the game goes.
Yeah, sometimes, you know... That is an insane thing to hit. So now he can play 5-star Guardian, and then at the next turn he can play 4 Heart with that Soraka eventually. I would think he might look to even sell the Soraka, and just roll for this Nyla 3. It is too important to hit.
You know, I was even going to say, like, in the itemization that they had, thanks to the fact they have the textures and crown, what do you prioritize? To prioritize Heart, Star Guardian, the Defender that we saw at the Riven. I didn't quite recall the fact that Syndra was your key to 2 of those 3, so that will be pretty helpful at the end of the day, if only there was a bench to throw in. But that said, the fight will still go on. Gagamo now fighting for their life against a fully statted out board, but the combined forces of the Nunu 2 and the Stalia are more than enough to nuke it down.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out that fight goes extremely differently if if PH Dan has one different component this entire game, and that is one singular extra tier. He was forced to slam a Warmogs on his Nyla and a Sunfire. If he has one more tier there, he has Redemption, which will reduce that burst AoE damage on his team. And actually help this Nyla live, help this Yuumi live a little bit longer, and avoid instantly dying to one Talia cast, basically, and maybe getting some more damage off. And I'd like to also harp on the point you just made about, having that variant of Star Guardian versus 4 Heart. With this many supers, Predatory Precision, Rabadons, it's really just about casting more. If you can cast a bunch of times, it doesn't really matter if you're scaling infinitely. You're gonna one shot either way.
Well, this board was looking pretty scary, but actually Coach Mac doesn't seem to have quite enough damage to deal with the cat. Nyla doing what we talked about earlier, healing things up, and it's actually going to be Coach Mac going down with Moldyra Maniac following at -1. So we have our top 4.
We do have our top 4, and it's some familiar faces. So this is kind of what I was predicting for today. I was thinking Owen and Dark Makaki probably are first and second, just based off of how they've played recently in AML as well as on ladder. And I was also expecting PH Dan to show out pretty well. I've gotten to talk to him a good amount, and it looks like he's doing it. He's playing Yuumi. I do have caster bias. I do have some caster bias, of course.
Hey, I mean, it's perfectly fine. I do too, but we have to see how PHJan is going to be doing here against Makaki at this stage. It looks like that's going to be a huge amount of power in that backline with the Aphelios too, with the Red Gun, a new adaptation this patch. However, it seems like that huge amount of power isn't going to be enough to cut through the Nyla 3. It is a huge threat to reckon with. Urgot will try to slow down the fight in order to buy time. The cat will keep going. The Belveth will say stop, and that will be enough to take out PHJan, but Owen will take the other loss.
Yeah, Owen took a pretty big loss there. I'd like to point out as well that Dark Makaki won that round because of 5 Aegis. The first cast that Yuumi had there was on the Aphelios, but didn't proc Oxforce immediately. It was just a sliver of HP, but it allowed this Aphelios to keep doing damage without the possible just random stray piece of damage that would kill it. So really important play from Dark Makaki to actually play this 5 Aegis board. He might look to play a few less Aegis in a minute here, seeing as his matchups are a little bit more AD centric besides Gagamau, but it looks like he's going to be playing Owen this next turn.
Yeah, and they were at this point able to shift some item around, so that means this Aphelios looks even scarier at this stage. That's a pretty good itemization slotted on through. So how this fight will go against Owen is going to be anyone's guess. Zed immediately drops into the backline, isn't going to find a good priority target as the Urgot waves will begin to come down, crashing over the entirety of this team from Owen. Aphelios in the backline is going to do everything he can, start bursting through, already has a through line onto the Belveth. However, again, nothing is going to be enough. It seems like that's going to be all she wrote. Aphelios against the world. Will it be enough left? Zed does what he can. He goes down. That's going to be a lot of Oxforce keeping things alive. Owen is going to stay standing while Gagamo goes down.
Wow, that fight was so close. Okay, it's really just all going to come down to positioning here. Can this Urgot be positioned to provide a good Zephyr, hit the Belveth, maybe hit the Fiddle? Just anything to reduce damage. And it looks like he's going to even take out a Leona too, just to ensure that this next Zephyr is on a unit that he prefers it to be on.
That is a huge risk being made. Again, we see another strong front line to come in, and I don't quite think we have found it. Also, I think that was a flub. They put in another ace unit that deactivates everything that's going to be going on here. It might not be the end of the world, though, as that's not the main carry here. It's still going to be our golden boy of the Aphelios. Huge tidal wave locks up so much of the front line, immediately followed up by a tornado from the Janna that's been slotted in. The forecast is looking pretty terrifying today. From there, though, this fight is going to have to continue as it does, but this looks like a much stiffer challenge than last time around. Belveth once again doing what can happen, but Aphelios already entering Oxforce once. You don't get a second shot. That's going to be Owen taking this game.
Yeah, Owen takes the game. What an insane last few rounds there to see that fight between Dark Makaki and Owen. You know, our two highest ranked players showing that they can do it in tournament, right? Showing that they can actually put their gameplay where everyone else believes it is, right? And so we saw two amazing boards. Owen's board was pretty interesting with the Belveth and Zed duo carry. You know, one hits the back line, the other slowly hits down that front line, chipping it away until, you know, that Ascension procced from Dark Makaki, and it became really close at that point. So amazing first game. I'm excited to see how the second game goes as well.
Yeah, and we got a bit of a break, though, but taking us through it is going to be our analyst desk with the real Honey Bear and August. So please walk me through more of what we just saw.
Absolutely. I would love to. Thanks so much for the cast. ProTroy, Dot, you guys are absolute legends. August, welcome on back. I want to start kind of with that last fight, and I want to look a little bit more at Dark Makaki. Felt like he got a little dizzy there. Walk me through it. Kind of, what do you think he was thinking in that situation?
Man, that's a hard one. Just because it is in the last fight, when you know for sure this is just going to be a positioning diff. We have some pretty equally yoked boards here. They're both the players running Aegis Trust, right? Coming in completely clutch for them on this AP heavy lobby. I think like what you said, he just got a little dizzy, just got a little ahead of himself, forgot he was running ace. Because I mean, the units are, you know, you just want to put in strong, independent units. Mordekaiser's is good. All these units are good, and it's just like, oh wait, no. Oh, I just cut the power of my good units in half by accident, and then it's like 1 second too late to switch it back. It was pretty close either way. I don't know if he would have won that regardless, because again, those boards were pretty close. The Belveth carry for Owen though, and the Vayne support just coming in a little bit more clutch. That Aphelios was not a sleeper though. He was trying his damn hardest. Those are some really close fights that maybe that would have made a difference if he hadn't accidentally weakened his board there.
I'm interested because they had, I probably would have put in the Fiddlesticks, right? Maybe another Fiddlesticks would have helped. I'm interested in looking at my boards. I feel like it's difficult in the time frame, but he did have a Gunblade sitting on his bench that he didn't slam, that he got from the first Urgot cast. So that's another one of those that man, if he's not dizzy, does he make it through? Is he able to actually win this fight? But such a close fight. We do end up having Owen winning out, but hey, I think if you're Dark Bukaki, second's feeling pretty good, right?
Yeah, you're well within your ability to. You have 5 more games. You keep playing like that. You don't even need to take a first. I think last set we had a player take first. I mean, to win out the tournament, didn't take a single first. Every other player in the lobby, basically there were 6 other people that took first over him every time. Different player every time though. Taking second every time is not a bad look. He's not disappointed in that game, I don't think. Not yet. Not yet, that's for sure. Some players who might be a little bit more disappointed though, kind of down there at the bottom. You got Xanazurg, Roganus bringing up 7th, 8th. If you're them looking at this game, are you a little nervous? Do you think that was a good warm-up game for them? How do you come back from getting a 7th, 8th? I think at this point, right, it's finals day. You've proven that you can come in clutch when it matters. You've proven that taking an 8th here or there, because all these players I think have bottom forward or maybe even 8th at least once over the course of these past few weeks. But you can't let that stop you, right? You can't let that. You have to. This is where your skill in the game hopefully is mostly equal. We know some people have been trying a little bit harder than others and showing out just a bit, but here it's going to come down to how well can you keep your mind straight, stay focused, and make the best plays you can, and hope that variance doesn't screw you over and that your best play is a little bit stronger than someone else's best play. I don't think that anyone should be too discouraged. It's just the first game. That 8th does. I mean, that 8th feels bad every time, no matter what. But Roganus is I've noticed, first or 8th player in general. Who leans towards first? I mean, that's how they got here. They take a lot of top ones, but when they're down, they are down pretty hard. So maybe he's a little nervous. Maybe he tilts. But listen, like I said, this is where you got to prove that you don't tilt, right? That you just shake it off and you play better next game. Yeah. Last question before we get back into it. Meta. What are you thinking? There's a lot of AP, a lot of Aegis. Do you think that's going to be what we see continuing going forward? Or do you think we're going to start to see more of these Belvests, more of these Zeds, more of these duelist possible comps? Or do you think it is going to be a lot of the AP routes continuing? You're asking me about the meta, you said? Meta, yep. Yeah. I think it's kind of going to be interesting because we did just see Sure Strike get nerfed. But we also saw Zed and a couple other AD units get buffed. We did see a lot of AP buffs. So for sure, if you're if you're keeping your finger on the pulse of the meta, right? You're like, all right, I know AP is going to be strong. Yep. So you have 2 choices. You can play AP because you know it's stronger, or you can counter meta, right? And you're like, well, I'm just going to early spec into Aegis, knowing that most people are going to be playing, AP. And then there's that third option, which is like, well, yeah, sure, it's a little bit weaker, but AD is not that weak. And if it's uncontested, I could hit harder. And everyone knows, if you hit, you are just stronger, right? If you're 3-starring 3 and 4 recon, that doesn't matter that, Vayne's a little bit weaker or, maybe Belvet's a little bit weaker. So it's interesting. It really depends. Ideally, right, in TFT, you always have this multi-angled attack that you can sort of perform, where as long as you're paying attention to your lobby mates real close, you can kind of always put yourself in a position to be slightly ahead of what they're working on. So I guess we'll see. Because again, like we talked about last week, these metas sort of in these long form tournaments sort of develop interdependent of the larger stats of the meta in general. So it depends on like what the players' preferences are, right? Do we have people that have been preferring to play AP and are excited for it now? And then do we have people that are watching that knowing, okay, that's 3, 4, 5 AP. I'm taking Aegis Crest like we just saw, or I'm playing Echo and Alistar and Andy. Like, are we? How is this going to be like a live reaction sort of thing?
Yeah.
And it's
I gotta cut you off here, August. We gotta send it back.
Okay,
yeah, you're killing it, man. But lots of AP. I'm hoping for the Ashe reroll is what I'm hoping for. But we're sliding into game 2 real fast here, so we gotta get back to the casters. Take it away, guys. Game 2 coming up.
Alrighty, and if it does make you feel a little bit better, August, that actually leads in pretty nicely to what I was going to be asking Dot about in a moment here. But before that, that is Dot. Sorry, over there, I keep forgetting that this camera is reversed, and I'm still ProTrade coming here for Game 2. So yes, as the analyst desk was saying, there is a lot of AP in this lobby. I am really curious to see how that's going to be translating into that counter meta specifically, though, as they were talking about with Aegis.
Yeah, we saw it immediately with Owen playing 2 AD carries in a lobby full of AP. We saw, Dark Makaki picking Aegis Crest immediately and saying, I'm avoiding this. I don't want to deal with 6 contesters. I'm just going to go ahead and play my strengths. I'm going to go ahead and play, any AD board. Philios 2 is really strong. They just buffed Red Gun, which was already arguably the best gun. We don't really know. China values it much higher than we did. And so we see a lot of these AD comps that come to fruition last game. And I think we're going to start to see more and more people kind of avoiding that AP contest line, avoiding, double Zoe reroll, avoiding the double Talia player, something that, you need a game to get a feel for, but now we have a feel for it, and we'll see if the players have adapted as well.
I'm glad you brought up the Severum, but that is a question I'm going to ask you more about way later on into this lobby, just because I want to make sure we're doing that as things are fresh. Meanwhile, though, going into this board, we're going to be starting this day with PH Dan, who finished off 4th in our last lobby, is one of our commentators, as we are wont to mention, just to, curse them a little bit, just with our own little commentatory powers.
Yeah, I guess we forgot to mention it last game, but he is a commentator with us. He's been commentating for a few games this set, and he's been great so far. But unfortunately, he wouldn't be able to do it with us here today. He's got some other commitment, I guess.
Yeah, I have no idea what they're doing. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. What the heck's going on? I don't know what to say.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It looks like we are in XDD low here. So a little joke that a few players in this game have is there's a good luck, have fun elo, and this one looks to be an XDD low as they type it in chat.
Oh my goodness! And I feel like I've been in good luck, have fun ego for the entire TFT career, let's say. Heck, even League of Legends before that, I feel like that's just where my head was at. But what can I say? I was always too nice for League, which is why I'm now here in the mythical realm of the Convergence. Switching over to Owen's perspective now, they have that Urzi Laser Core. This is something that we were talking about a little bit earlier.
Yeah, it looks like he is in a solid spot again with Laser Core on 2-1 or on 1-4, making 10 gold and also getting 2 Laser Core options here. So we'll see if he decides to take either the siphoning or the court focus. Unfortunately, it looks like Moldiver Maniac is having issues getting in and out of the game. We'll see what happens there. But going back to Owen's board, we have, the court focus and siphoning wins offered. Let's see what can happen.
Hey, I mean, it's a little bit risky with these early augments, though, right? Because you can't shuffle things around. There's no guarantee it's not going to be weighted off of what you have on your board. So that is going to be a pretty risky thing. They are going to be able to just slot in the Ashe, make sure they get that good amount of power. Not quite sure if that's going to be the utility that was being talked about. But, I'm sorry, the reroll that was being talked about on that desk. But hey, it's still a pretty good.
Yeah, it's still pretty good. It looks like we're just taking a look at Moldiver Maniac here. Unfortunately, he can't get into the game. I don't know what's going to happen here, but maybe we can take a look back at Owen's board and see how he's doing with this amazing opener, right? I mean, this is a very solid Laser Core opener. You're still kind of in need of that +1, right? Somehow he has Ashe 2 as well as Senna, and it looks like we are going to have to remake the game. Moldiver Maniac was having some issues. Hopefully we can figure that out, sort that out, and, unfortunately, some people may have had good openers, some people may not, but for the sake of the rest of the lobby, it is important to have everyone play at the same time.
Yeah, it is going to be an unfortunate thing to see, but again, we were preparing for this kind of eventuality. This was a known bug coming in here. It's great that we got to get through game one without having to worry about it whatsoever. I'm saying that we see it here. Positively, however, that was only in the first 2-1 carousel. Nothing too crazy there. So we're actually going to throw things back to the analyst desk while things are being prepped up again.
Hello, we are back. Thank you so much, guys. Technical difficulties happen. This isn't on our end. This is on Riot's end. I personally would just DM Lawrence and let him know that you were disappointed in him, if I was you. But August, going back to our initial conversation that we had, right before we jumped out, we were talking about the meta, the AP trends. Even starting to this game, the casters were alluding to it. It looked like we were going to start pushing more towards AP. So elaborate that with me a little bit more. Do you think there are AD comps that people can really run into? And do you think it's going to be a super viable strategy?
That's a good question. So where we were had left off was I think there are a few AD comps that are still competitively viable. Mm-hmm. Maybe not all S tier, but I think what we're going to see is that this is going to come down to player preference, right? There's definitely a spot for AP again in the competitive meta. Like, people are playing Taliyah again, and I don't think I've seen Taliyah being taken seriously in like 3 or 4 patches. So, so on the one hand, you've got like player preference, you've got recency, and you're like, oh, this is like a new thing. We know that Taliyah's been strong, but she hasn't been strong recently. So you're gonna have people that are excited to play AP, people that want to play AP, and then you're gonna have players, hopefully, right? If we're gonna see a really tight lobby, that are noticing this, like, oh, I know this player likes to play this. Spec early into that counter, right? That magic resist counter in the Aegis line, and then we're gonna have the other players who are like, well, if literally no one's gonna be playing AD, I can get away with this, right?
That's what it feels like. Is really just filling out the board. At what point do you think playing out the boards is a viable strategy? Do you think you have to start setting it at 3-1, or do you think it's sooner than that?
No, I don't think it's sooner than that. I think that round 2, some people are for sure going to be like, this is my board. I have 5 of my 8 units right here, right? If you're playing Gadgettine with your Gadgettine frontline, you're looking to keep those units because of the damage reduction, right? If you're looking to play, Anima Squad, then you're keeping those units pretty early if you can hit the 3 and then the 5. But I think for this level of play, right, that flexibility isn't just what you're willing to open, it's what you're willing to switch into, right? We saw a lot of player
expression. Back in the game. Give me the last thoughts and then hit me with it. Last thoughts.
Flexibility is the name of the game. Whoever's most flexible is going to win.
I fully agree. I hope flexibility is going to be shown all around this. But we are getting back in the game. We're loading in right now. So I'm going to send you guys back over. You guys got Pro Troy. Dot, take it away.
Yes, flexibility may be the name of the game, but also how you flex on your opponents is also quite important as well. Wouldn't you say, Dot?
I would say that, yeah. We see a lot of people in this game love to use their specific little legends to flex. I know Owen has his own that he always used. He even hit the Star Guardian Chibi Ari and decided not to use it just to flex on his opponents. So part of it also, and then the other thing is, you're hopping into a TFT game, just casual AML finals. Are you a little scared seeing that challenger border? I would be a little nervous, honestly.
Yeah. It scares me a little bit, but also remember, these are players that you're playing with consistently through the leagues. The fact that we obviously alluded to a little bit earlier, but didn't quite get into full context of, ranked does not equal tournament play. So while ranked is a good indicator of how good you are at, say, quote-unquote, punching down or just generally being able to invest hours into it, it's not always the best way of showcasing how good you are inside of a tournament proper. So yes, it is something that can scare you. Yes, it is one of those little sources of mental damage that players will have to try to navigate as they're going through the marathon that is these 6 games. But that said, there are other things I feel like might be a little bit more pressing in mind.
Yeah, it's not the whole story, right? I mean, especially on a new patch where people have played very little. Rank is not that indicative of meta understanding and a meta read. So one player might have, this idea that AP is amazing. I'm hard forcing it, right? We might see someone like Xanazurge who, took the Gadgeteam crest, even though someone else had already hit a 2-star. They might have had a meta read that, playing the Zoe line is just extremely strong. And unfortunately, in this case, it might not have been the correct one. We'll see if they adapt and change as the games go on. Other than
I get that. I'm sorry, I was just going to say, I get that too, because I have been trying to get Zoe to work in so many different ways since we saw the changes of Gadgeteam, and I unfortunately have thus far been unsuccessful.
Yeah, looking at stats, I'm looking at the changes in the patch notes, you'd expect, okay, they keep buffing these units, these Gadgeteam units, they keep buffing the augments for it. When is it going to be right to play vertical? And honestly, it's tough to tell because having to play a Poppy on your board for a very long time is usually not the right answer. In this case, sometimes it can be, if you get a bigger, better buckler, if you somehow hit Poppy 3 randomly and can actually use it as a good unit on your board, it's playable, but unfortunately, it takes a lot to get Gadgeteams working. And coming over to this game specifically, we're see Future Sight on PH Dan's board, something that I would click. Actually, I'm weird. I click it every time on ladder. I won't even lie.
Really? Yeah, because I agree. Future Sight isn't what it used to be. I think ever since they added in the little next fight indicators, it became a little bit easier to sort of play around just because there were ways for you to be able to further track things beyond just the Future Sight player. But all of that being said, though, it still is great. It gives you that early Zephyr to slow down momentum. Unfortunately for Dan, though, I don't really think there's too much momentum that could be slowed on that board from Moldiver we just saw.
Yeah, there's not much going on too much here. Having this kill 2 might help in the next couple rounds, but of course he was not winning that last one. Having the Future Sight does at least get you to be able to position properly against some of these people. So we'll transition over to Xanazurge, but keep an eye on PH Dan's HP. It looks like he's going to try and lost streak.
Yeah, on Xanazurge's side of things, I really feel like the Thieves' Gloves augment is one of the best silver ones that you can find just because of how, I was about to say consistent it could be in terms of its power level, but then I look at what Dark Makai's running, and they're running consistency to a T.
Yeah, they're running it pretty well. 2 units on board. Unfortunately, probably going to take a 4-unit loss. That hurts the HP a bit. But against a board like Xanazurge with that Thieves' Gloves front line with a Runeens and an interesting backline item for this Lux, having a BF and a Titan's Resolve. I don't think that can carry him to a 5 streak against maybe some of these other boards. We'll have to see what they are.
No, you see, this is a frontline Lux, right? Like, this could be like the Spirit Bomb Ari that we were running back in Fates. And what's going to happen is that this Lux is just going to be up there casting Lucent Singularities every couple seconds. You call me crazy, but I promise it's going to work. Regardless of those fever dreams I still feel calling to me, despite the fact that Set 4 has been a lifetime ago, it feels like, at the very least in TFT years. I do have to be somewhat critical, though, because yes, you do want to try to ensure you're on that consistent loss streak with consistency, but the fact that you're doing it at such a huge loss can be pretty scary, especially when you have someone like Moldiver here who's also looking to see if they can grief a little bit.
Yeah, Moldiver's going to take a big loss here, and it's going to hurt his HP quite a bit. But it's going to help the lobby. And that's what you have to tell yourself. You might be 75 health before Carousel, but if you grief Dark Makaki even once, if you ruin his consistency anytime on this stage, it is amazing for the rest of the lobby. It really hurts the player who's going to be basically an augment down at that point, right?
Yeah, and
Go ahead,
Sorry
please.
about that. I was just going to say, if you are taking those 5-unit losses, though, remember, you took 1 less damage there because the changes on this patch. So that's at least a nice little consolation prize, taking 9 instead of 10. But it still is going to be pretty painful.
It is a bit of a consolation prize, and I wanted to let you cook earlier. You're cooking with that Spirit Bomb Ari
No,
Lux frontline.
I have a huge problem, which is that when I play TFT to have fun, unlike our real champions that we have playing right now in the AML. And as a result, I spend a lot of time thinking of bad strategies instead of thinking of good strategies. Sometimes they're very, very funny. They don't always get me where I want to go, though, but this is a familiar thing to my mind, however, being the underground that has been slotted in by Dark Magaki at this stage. They still look like they can be grief. Moldiver Maniac, however, is running a slightly stronger board, so it becomes a little bit harder of a sell.
Yeah, and if I were the rest of the lobby right now, I'd be really scared of Dark Makaki. 76 health, it's going to be 67 after this round with the changes to 5-unit losses.
Mm-hmm.
And Underground in, he's not even the lowest health in the lobby at this point. He's in a really, really solid spot. You know, the HP wise, it sucks to be this low, but when your consistency with Underground in, you're going to have 50 gold by Krugs as long as you lose this next round. And you're going to be in a fantastic spot to just win streak all of stage 3 as long as you roll on 3-2, and then win streak the rest of the game. Keep it going. You know, you're 67 health. If you're 67 health for the rest of the game, it's still a first, even if you lost 30 on the first stage.
Well, that's actually the next thing I was going to ask you about, which is you're running consistency here. Obviously, you cannot lose forever. That would be bad. Are you going to be trying to see if you can flip things at this stage now? Are you going to do a huge roll down, or are you going to try to do something absolutely insane? By the way, look at that little adaptation there. Really afraid of fighting Moldiver, moving the Sona into the front line.
Yeah, moving the Sona in the front line. I'm surprised he didn't even move the Sona into the bottom right corner. The Vi into the bottom right corner and trap the Sona, or the Vi in the corner with Sona and Kale on each side. Also surprised he's picking up the Jax instead of the Senna. It makes sense because just having another brawler might be a good idea, but something to think about is, you have AD components. You might be looking to play sure shots. If you roll down, you hit a couple good units, maybe a Belveth as well, anything flexible. And you also have the brawler in the shop anyway to play for this next turn. But we see that he can just level and play all the units here, maybe survive, get the duelist in, get the brawler in. So pretty solid plays from Dark Makaki. Gonna cash out next turn as well. And like you said, I would be rolling, I believe, 40 to 45 gold on level 6 at 3-2, maybe even at 3-1, just so you can get in units that you might want for your possible cash out and for your possible hero augment.
Yeah, again, it's one of those really nerve-wracking things, I feel, when we're watching some of these fights where players are getting a ton of gold, they're spending all that health early to get into that position, but they are in that riskier sort of state. They need to start figuring out how they turn that gold advantage into a real board strength advantage. And, the sooner the better, given the fact that we're now staring down the barrel of a 58 HP Dark Makai and a 57 HP, by the way, Moldiver Maniac. 2 very low scores when you contrast that with the rest of the lobby, all sit in 80s or better.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. The lobby HP of this, the whole lobby HP is going to be a little bit wacky. You'll start to see, hopefully, Moldiver and Makaki start to make a comeback here. With Gagamau also now kind of playing a bit of a weaker board. 7 out of 10 underground, so just a loss here is all he needs to cash out. Look to not play the 4 underground, because at that point, if you're losing anyway, you're going to cash out, and I assume he's going to look to take out underground next turn. Just take whatever he gets here and run with it.
Yeah, again, it is also another smart reason too. You don't want to risk not being overshooting your underground catch out, getting that little bit of extra temptation to keep going, try to get a little bit more. You want to land exactly on the 10, not overshoot it, no whammies whatsoever.
Exactly, no whammies. And a couple good options here, Last Stand is really solid if you've already been playing a bit of Lost Streak. He might even look to keep Underground in a little longer. I don't know if I would. Yeah, just playing a bit of tempo. waiting to see what he gets later on level 7.
Yeah, Dark Makaki, meanwhile, also offered their own heist, also a heavy gold heist with the Reforger, however, instead of an item remover. Curious to see if they're going to also make the choice to continue, seeing as they are going to be losing a bit more, and yes, they are.
Yeah, so this is a very interesting play from Makaki. I would say it's very heavily first to 8th, right? You're not playing to preserve too much HP at this point. You still want to lose with Underground in. You still want to lose with Consistency in, but you at least have 4 duelists, so you're planning on killing maybe 3 or 4 units out of these rounds. And I'm thinking he's looking to fully send it on 3-5. Probably go level 7 with about 40 gold to roll. Try and hit maybe a Samira, maybe a Belveth as well. Keep Underground in a little bit longer as well with that, and maybe just try and win out from there.
I mean, with 36 HP, we're talking about a lot of good feelings and thoughts, but I'm not quite sure if Dark Makaki is going to be able to get over that line just yet. Remember, in our last game, they were our second place player, so they do have a few more points to play around with at this level, and Consistency at this point is operating in full force, giving them, I think at this point, like 13 gold per round, basically, off of both their interest, their streaks, everything sort of going on through here. So they are very rich. However, I just don't know how much longer they can keep losing.
Yeah, let's see if they can keep losing with that 36 health, right? 2 losses from that point maybe put you at 16, 17 health. You're going to have to try and lose this one, I would assume. He'd be at, I believe, 9 out of 10 underground or 8 out of 10 underground, so not enough to cash out immediately. So we'll see if he decides to lose 2 more here and then roll a lot of gold to start win streaking.
And we actually get to see the other big thing that happened in the last round, being that Moldiver was able to hit a 3-star Silas. So that will be showing that Moldiver is going deep into Renegade. If I had to guess, those items look like they are for Viego that would come a bit later down the line. Viego at this point has made a full adaptation away from the Gunblade back into the Bloodthirster. So being a bit more greedy with that HP, sure, but a bigger heal is exactly what he wants after going so low with Wax Force.
Yeah, and it looks like
I didn't know if there was a second talent 2 on that board, but I would imagine those items are actually going to stay on talent. He took featherweights as well, so trying to play around the Talon 3 and the Silas 3, and maybe eventually getting into Viego. It's kind of rough to take featherweights there, not have the +1 to Renegade. And then you're playing a Silas 3, which really isn't that good, even with featherweights. I wouldn't take it if I had to, but if I hit it, I'm gonna play it until I go Viego. I think a Viego 2 is still better than a Silas 3 with featherweights in.
And Xanasurge right now is still playing tempo, and I know this because I'm looking at a Lux 2 with a Bloodthirster Shojin, and as we already talked about, the aforementioned Titan's Resolve. Where do you think this composition is going to be going? Because I see some Talia, I see that TR going in other places, I can even see a Belveth.
I will tell you, Protroid, I am lost. I cannot even tell you what is happening here. I love it. I love that he is just playing units that are 2-starred that have items on them. It's such a refreshing way of playing TFT, of just like, I have these components, slamming items saves health, and I have these random units that sometimes hit the correct ones, sometimes they don't. I would imagine Talia. I would imagine that Shojin is going to be on Talia. I'm going to imagine that the Titans is going to be on Annie, and that Bloodthirster is also probably going to be on Talia. Unfortunately, no offensive components, though, other than that.
Yeah, that will be, I think, the roughest part. So we'll have to see exactly where this is going to end up. We're switching back to Dark Makaki, though, for 2 reasons. The first being that, they really get a cash out. Hooray. The other, though, is that they were able to get a win. So now the pressure is on. That's an amazing reforge. Sorry, I was stalling. I couldn't do it any longer. It's incredible. What was that?
That is so illegal.
I cannot believe that. Reforging a ZZ Rod and a blue buff into an Infinity Edge and a Zeke's, 2 things that he loves for playing this line, right? Now he can probably win streak into this Wolves. He doesn't even have to roll Any more gold? He has 50 gold at level 7. I think Dark Makaki's in a great spot, actually. He is in a solid spot to maybe top 4 this game. You know, we have to be careful because 27 health is not a lot of health. You know, one round here or there, someone hits a 3-star 4 cost, who knows, right?
I just want to know who Dark Makaki slipped a nice crisp $20 bill to in order to make sure they got such a perfect reforge, because that is absolutely incredible to see. And Whip, again, they were able to get a small streak going into Wolves, not the huge one they had before, but now a win streak, so that will be good for their health at this stage. They have the chance to look to try to rush 8 to go for something like that Aphelios that we've been talking about.
Yeah, and you want to know who he slipped the 22?
Oh.
Let's just say his name rhymes with warthog. All right. I don't know. That one was a little iffy. I think he dev consoled that one in.
Yeah, again, it's a tricky kind of thing, but you know, folks know how to cover their tracks these days, so we'll just have to see if Dark Makaki is going to slip any secrets that perhaps we could use in ranked, maybe. Although I don't want to get anything VAC banned that's Steam. Any kind of ban that could sort of be disappointing to me. Switching back over to Dan, who has been sitting a little bit higher HP wise in this stage, sticking more towards a more general sort of play style, and also going for another last stand here.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see what people are putting in on 4-1 here, right? So for some reason, Dan kept in Brawler and Duelist, so probably angling towards Zed or Sedge here. Preferably Zed for him. But, you know, he's playing a Belveth, keeps his board alive a bit longer. Fighting this Talon 3, though, it's going to be really hard to kill.
Yeah, that was free start, I think, just a round ago, and that is the real power that you were talking about. I have to say, for me, I always seem to forget that fleet footwork is an augment, which feels absolutely terrible to say, but also because I feel like there hasn't really been too many good examples of it. This is an exciting hero augment selection, though, because here's the Zed and the Sejuani we're talking about, but this is also going to be a chance for a 5-cost hero as well.
Yeah, I do enjoy seeing a 4-5-4. He's just going to immediately take the Zed. Zed got buffed this patch pretty heavily. And in the Duelist variant, the 4 Duelist variant, it's pretty strong to play Zed. His items aren't insane for it, though. He really just has the Hodge. Maybe might look to do a QSS or something to get one defensive component, maybe keep the Zed alive. Really looking for an Edge of Night, though.
They could, in theory, look for something more along Laser Core, though, right? I'm looking at a Ionic Spark on the bench. They can try to see if they get more laser pew-pew-pews going as a result of that. But even then, that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where it's not as consistent, no?
Yeah, the Laser Core line is not as consistent anymore. You tend to just play 3 at this point with Zed and play the 4 or 6 Duelist along with 3 Hacker. You really just care about your Zed at this point. 5 Laser is not that strong anymore. As long as the units that you're playing are also not that strong anymore, you're not going to be playing the sure shots. You really don't need to have that Brawler, that Renekton in on your board with this. So we'll see him take a loss to a Belveth 2 here. But overall, not bad.
Yeah, and I got to say really quickly, too, Xanazurge looks like they're beginning to run a very threatening comp. They went with the Fiddlesticks augment, which is just generally scary in and of itself. But beyond that, too, they also are looking to have this mixed Belveth Aurelion Soul carry, something that I've been a pretty huge proponent of, just because it allows you to roll for 2 very high, powerful 4-costs that can dominate this middle stage of the game. On top of that, too, mixed damage, so not one kind of defensive option can fully wall you out.
Yeah, I do like the duo carry. You know, if he can get this 2-star Aurelion online, he's basically just playing, threat level max without the augment. It's solid. And I like Absolute Corruption with Belveth. She scales really surprisingly well off of AP damage. That's why, when you take Battle Mage, you can actually look to angle Belveth as well. So we see, what was that?
I was just going to say, so what you're telling me is that I should be putting a death cap on my Belveth every single game?
Yes. In fact,
Excellent.
Every game you're in with me, you should do it. They're just,
okay,
I don't.
We play double up, right?
Yeah, we are. Are you seeing this on the board? Okay.
Yeah, but I was, but again, the quick little Toggle seems to have fixed things at the very least.
Okay.
That is a good thing to see. Another good thing to see on the side of our screen right now is Dark Makai. They've decided it's beginning to win streak. And as a result, that will be a good enough thing for them to keep things going.
Yeah, they're looking to win streak, and that's scary, right? I mean, the consistency player lost streak for 1 billion rounds and is now win streaking. Okay, we see Owen hit this Daredevil Samira 2. Look to be really strong and scale more and more as he might lose HP. A solid board, nothing too insane. Level 7, probably gonna hit level 8 on 5-1. And we don't know his opponent just yet, either Gagamau or Moldiver Maniac, but both of them look to be pretty strong.
And this is exactly what you and August were talking about, right? This is an uncontested line at this point. Sure shots aren't as powerful, but you're able to hit the Samira at a decent rate. That should be pretty helpful. Zed immediately on the back line, by the way, however, went over to the Sivir, which isn't going to be that primary target. There is just so much damage that comes through from this 2-star Samira that I'm not quite sure if there's much that Gagamo can do here.
Yeah, did you see that targeting on the Zed? It was right next to Samira and decided to dash towards the front line. So a big out for Owen there. Got pretty lucky and might look to play around 4 sure shots later. I think it caps out a lot harder with 4 sure shots or just going 9 and getting in 2 good, really good 5-cost units. Getting towards that Bill Gates comp, but he isn't outstandingly rich. He's going to maybe fight someone who's really strong and end a streak that he might do. And I'm actually intrigued. Is this Fiddlesticks augment the AP one? Is that Absolute Corruption, or is it the one that gives health to both units?
I didn't quite see it at the end second there. I believe it's Absolute Corruption, but we'll have to take a double check later. Moving into this fight, though, against Coach Mac, who, by the way, they have the Talia one that will be powerful, but it's not going to be enough compared to the Samira 2 at the stage. The entire front line is just getting shredded, but so is Owens. It's going to be harder and harder for things to keep up here. It's going to be, however, the thrill of the hunt, keeping things alive. Samira going down, I think, to maybe a couple hundred HP there, but able to bring it back at the last second.
Yeah, that was amazing. That is what I find so
awesome about Samira. I have gotten ridiculed for this take a bit already.
Oh, please.
But
please.
I love Samira. I hope she stays forever, honestly. With the patch last time where everyone was just playing the lottery for Samira, I just think it's so cool. Like at the end of the round, like we just saw, right? Ulting and just hitting a bunch of units, killing them. If you have Thrill full healing you 3 times, basically. I just think it's an awesome mechanic, and like people like Xayah from set 7 more as the traditional, 4-cost AD carry. I like the Samira of like doing kind of burst damage, but through like to 3 or 4 units, right? And all with AD damage.
It's interesting how you mention that, though, because I feel like when we talk about Xayah, we're focusing very exclusively on Xayah the unit because very few people really remember Rage Wing. Like, I struggle to remember the name every now and then. But when we're looking at the Samira, I feel like everything about the unit is working in concert with each other, right? Because the implementation with the ricochet off of this, the ricochet off of the ability is great. The fact that you have the ace execute is amazing too. So that is all very exciting stuff to see.
Yeah, it does all work in conjunction with each other, right? Sure shot buffing that AD really makes it so those end of the game, end of the round fights, it's so satisfying for Samira to ult 4 units, all of it aces at the end, and it has like 400 AD. It's a very cool mechanic, and I like the way that she's designed overall.
Yeah, and we're beginning to see what Dark Makai has been cooking just generally off to the side there. They also went for the Samira, the support one, to give everyone that extra bonus attack speed to sort of keep things alive. They were, however, also off of that level 8 from their consistency gold, have been able to get themselves a bit of extra power in the form of that early Aphelios.
Yeah, and part of that extra power seemed to be in the front line, right? So Owen has the damage for sure to get through, couple, basically his opponent's front line if it was the exact same as his. But his front line is dying really early without, the Sedge 2, the Alistar he has 2-starred at least, the Echo 2, once he 2-stars that, he's going to be in a great spot with Prankster in as well. And I look to see Owen actually improve more and more, as well as Makaki had actually more Daredevil value, so that's something to think about as well.
And we have to watch this fight here because Roganus is still trying to go further and further into the recons, but hasn't quite been able to find anything just yet. The Echo time dilation will be helpful to just keep things alive that little bit longer. However, there just isn't enough in any capacity to keep it going. The frontline threats are going down. You still don't have enough damage off of your recon units. It's just not going to be enough.
Yeah, it's not going to be enough. Very close to dying. If Ragunis can maybe hit that Kaisa 3-star, he has Recon Heart, he has Double Trouble, he has the JG on the Kaisa, right? He has a great setup for something that could be great. But unfortunately, he's not there just yet. And as we took a look at Xanazurge's board, unfortunately, it looks like he isn't able to pick up any of his units. We'll have to see what's happening there later on. But right now, he's in a solid spot. Moldiver's in a good spot. And Makaki lost his win streak, but still is in a good spot.
Yeah, and this fight, however, we are going to be switching things to Moldiver versus Owen, who, by the way, Moldiver looks like they're looking pretty shiny over there with the Urgot, so expect to see a lot of chests sweeping through, despite the fact that it is only going to be the Urgot one. Towards the backline, however, you see that talent is still capable of putting in work. There is going to be a little bit of delay here thanks to Oxforce, but again, Samira versus the world. Never bet on the world here. Samira is all you need.
Samira and Thrill of the Hunt. It is so awesome every time that happens, and it looks like that augment is working out really well for Owen. I'm sure he's glad that he did end up choosing it. These end of the round fights, it's just getting so close, and that extra 500 HP is all it's coming down to at this point.
Yeah, you still have to watch out for any kind of anti-heal because obviously that can rough things up. But hey, you're a Samira. You're in the backline. You're away from most of those traditional use cases of it just because I feel like it's been Sunfire more so this set.
Yeah, it's been Sunfire more so this set. And part of what we're seeing, the reason she's not having to deal with this anti-heal is she's doing a lot of damage early on and the front line is holding up enough to kill the opponent's front line as well. And it really is just coming down to her versus like 3 carries, 3 backline units. And Samira will win that most of the time if you have Thrill of the Hunt. So we're seeing a crazy board from PH Dan here as well. The 4 Duelist, the Z2 online, Last Stand. Someone's going to have to take out Dan because he is coming at everyone with this board.
Well, there's a few good options. I mean, look at the other players that have single-digit HP. Coach Mac, also Last Stand. Gagamo, I think, just hit an Aphelios too, so that's not going to be what we see here, though. But hey, what do you know? That Zephyr is going to do a bit of work delaying that Samira from trying to get any kind of ball rolling, so that will be immensely helpful for Dan to try to keep this going. And yeah, Owen can't even do anything about it. So much of that power is focused on the Samira that taking her out of the equation causes the whole board to crumble.
Yeah, and we see Coach Mac also go out. Gagamel has not procced his Last Stand yet. There it is. So
excuse me, I mixed things up. I thought it was Coach Mac that was running Last Stand. I forgot it was Gagamo. Do excuse me right there. But that's going to be a pretty huge difference.
That is going to be a huge difference. And with that comes the possibility that the Last Stand players fight each other. It looks like this is not going to be the case right now, seeing as PH Dan has future sight and can tell he's not. But Gagamel, Gagamel is a force to be reckoned with for Coach Mac. For PH Dan. If they fight each other, it's really going to come down to a battle of who can position the best. And who knows that they're fighting each other, right? If Dan knows, it might be a bit easier.
Hey, I mean, that's exactly what the future sight is going to be giving you, that extra second to try to piece things together, figure out exactly where you can try to go. Unfortunately, though, this fight is looking like it is also going to be swinging in Dan's favor. Xanazurge just doesn't have the power at their disposal, and they go down.
Yeah, they go down as we transition over to Gagamel versus Moldiver Maniac. It looks like Gagamel has spiked enough to actually have this board win him some rounds, still on 1 HP, still just having this Last Stand, praying that it's enough to get him a top 4 here. Maybe he fights Owen or Moldiver and can take it all the way. I would like to see what Makaki can do because he's 21 HP and still streaking, so we haven't taken a big look at his board in a while. Maybe we will in a bit.
Well, I mean, just looking at Gagamo there, this is looking pretty scary for Last Stand, as you were talking about, though, right? Because at this point, this set is absolutely terrifying. They have so much additional healing coming in from Hacker 3, the fact that you have the Last Stand applying it as well, and those resistances are getting further buffed by the fact that you also are running a Titan's Resolve. So everything is just, again, in concert with one another to just make this an even scarier carry.
Yeah, it is an extremely scary carry. The only issue is there are situations, right? The Zed gets CC'd or gets bursted. Some people might have a little bit more of burst damage, right? A Samira might be able to take care of it a bit more if it, scales up with sure shots, doesn't get attacked too much early on. There are ways to beat this. I do think the matchups are not extremely favorable for everyone else against Gagamo, but Moldiver hitting like a Fiddle 2, that is something that can definitely help.
Well, here we are going to be switching things over to Owen's perspective, who there's no Zephyr blocking out the Samira yet. However, the Shroud of Stillness plus the Zed should be enough to immediately go on to her. There's really nowhere I think the Samira can run, and I think on top of that too, the Sejuani ult is just insult to injury at this stage. Not enough Ricochet can proc any amount of the Frill to keep things going, and that means the Zed is going to be able to absolutely go to town on the back line, on the front line, on anywhere the Zed so pleases.
Yeah, and I wonder, can he kill one more unit? If he can, he's still alive after fighting a Last Stand player. So very close, right? I think. Oh, I was wrong.
Oh, yeah, that's absolutely terrifying to see. With Moldiver going down, though, that means Owen still squeaks their way into the top 4. Gagamo, PH Dan, and Dark Makake is going to be the last players remaining. And correct me if I'm wrong, PH Dan and Gagamo, those are our Last Stand players. They're just on 1 HP and a Dream.
They're on 1 HP and a Dream, and avoiding each other. I would imagine Gagamo is fighting a ghost of someone here. Not sure who. But they are both Last Stand, and as soon as they fight each other, someone's guaranteed to die. But unfortunately for the rest of the lobby, that just hasn't happened.
Yeah, so now it's going to be the chase to see if Dark Makake is going to be able to unseat this Last Stand, at least at their disposal. At this time, it looks like Samira is a bit safer. She has the time in order to really begin to scale up, and it looks like that's been great for her usage right here. PH Dan doesn't have anything left in the tank, and it might even be a double kill as we focus on to here. Let's see what this Zed is able to do here. It seems like there's not going to be enough healing or damage whatsoever. Wait, excuse me, Gagamo was the Zed right there. I got things mixed up between 3 different boards. I'm so sorry. That means that we're going to have our top 2 of Gagamo and Dark Makake.
Yeah, Dark Makake made a huge comeback. Gagamo has that Last Stand. I don't know who's going to win this. With that healing and no backline, Morello or Sunfire back there, it might be able to just out-heal the damage from this Aphelios 2 and the Samira 2. I would imagine with this sort of formation, there's pretty much no positioning Gagamo can do to win. We'll have to see if the Sunfire procs onto the Zed.
On top of the 2, this is going to be a Sunny Janna, so that means that is going to be an extra amount of shielding, despite the Sejuani having the clear access point for the stun. Either which way, though, Zed is doing exactly what we saw in that last fight, but with so many few avenues to get onto the Sejuanis, I don't think we're going to be able to see the repeat. And with that, Gagamo goes down, and Dark Makake goes from second to first from game 1 to 2.
Yeah, amazing showing from Makake. Just absolutely smurfing on everybody with this play of consistency. Honestly, that's what I wish I could do with consistency. Watching that, meanwhile, I go, 2 loss, 1 win, 2 loss again. It usually doesn't go as well for me. Makake, in the hands of a great player, consistency is one of the strongest augments in the game, right? 5 loss, he knows his break points. He knows, I'm okay, I'm healthy, 30 HP is enough as long as I win out. And he did. He did it. He really mounted that comeback and won the game.
Yeah, and it's not just knowing the breakpoints too. It's having trust in your decision making as a player, because a lot of people, myself included, freak out when they're open forwarding. They want to try to make sure they're getting those lesser losses. They want to make sure they're able to preserve that little bit of HP. But the end result is that waffling effect that you were talking about, where you got to win, you got to loss, you got to win the loss, and you can't really do anything with that silver augment. So as a result of that confidence that we were able to see, that was going to be absolutely amazing play. Before I throw it back to the analyst desk, though, really quickly, Dot, you have been phenomenal this season. It's been great having you just as a fellow commentator going through all of this. Please, because you're not going to be here later, tell us where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, you can find me on social media at @_TFT on Twitter. And occasionally I stream my low to mid Masters Velo TFT games on I'm Dot, by the way, on Twitch, the same as you see it on my handle. I appreciate the opportunity, and it's been great. I can't wait to watch the rest of these games. Hope this commentary goes well in the next couple games as well.
And one more quick thing, too. I was originally not supposed to be the commentator for this block. It was supposed to be Sir Blackp, but they are actually playing in the Brazilian qualifiers right now as we speak. I don't know how they're doing. I've been too busy focusing on this here, but obviously we wish them luck, and we should still be seeing them later on today. Just want to make sure I gave them that call out because A, it's awesome that they are where they are, and B, they were supposed to be in this block initially. With that, though, I'm throwing things back to Honeybear for the analyst desk. Guys, take us away.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys. Great cast on game 2. Even though we did have some difficulties going through that, well done getting us through it. And yeah, what an absolutely crazy game. Dark Macaque dominating the lobby, going from what they dropped down to 27 HP early.
27.
They ended up pulling it out. I'm not sure who they slipped money to. But on a completely unrelated note, everybody's getting pizza today. Completely unrelated. I just happened to find some money and decided to use it on pizza for the staff. So feels pretty good out there.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and out myself. Dark Macaque making me eat my effing words. I said out loud to Lawrence, like, hey, listen, guys, I know consistency is good, but I don't know if it's 27 HP round 3 good. I guess eat my heart out because that dude said, hold my beer,
yes,
and just wings out. And only lost, I think, one more time I think he won at 21 HP, or did they go down to single digits?
I believe it was 21 HP, yeah.
Yeah, a win is a win. Proving me wrong right there in the moment. Love to see it. I love when I get proven wrong because I have some pretty hot takes a lot of the time. Consistency exiles Samira Shoreshot.
Yes.
What did we say? People are going to look for uncontested lines while everyone's busy trying to over-contest for these new strong AP units. He takes Samira to a hot, spicy first after taking second in the first round.
Now,
He's
I will
looking
say,
really tough.
He was one of 2 people that picked up Samira, though. So there's another in the lobby. I'm blanking on who else picked it up. But we were talking about the AP versus AD lines. We had 2 Zeds. We had 2 Samiras. I don't know if we had another AD line, but half the lobby transitioned to AD this time.
Yeah.
I feel like it was a huge shift from game 1 to game 2. We still had some of the AP lines coming through, but that early game was heavy AD focused, and it just punched forward into more and more and more AD. And honestly, it looked like this lobby, being a flex player, was fighting an AP route, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, it was Owen that took the other Samira, and then in our top 3, taking second and third, the 2 Zed players, the other, so we were the whole top 4 AD, right? The 2 Zed players who were also the 2 Last Stand players. I thought Last Stand was going to take the first for a second there. It was looking real hot. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's insane that is actually going on. Yeah, I'm interested to see what is going to happen in this third lobby. Is it going to be pure flex, or are they starting to feel out? And it's more of a question to you. Do you think they're feeling out each other? Starting to see, okay, this person likes to kind of go towards this route. Or do you think it's just going to be pure flex? Can you actually get any information from these players?
We did have a 5th. Nope, I'm wrong. I don't know if I could surmise from this game. But it does feel like we have a lot of flexibility in this lobby, feeling like people are trying to like on the fly make these changes to make sure that they always have that little bit of edge, because I'm sure we're gonna see it. These losses and wins are gonna make every single bit of difference. That first place, that second place, that third place over your last round is gonna be what pushes you over to that edge. This is gonna be close, and I think that the hyper flexibility of our players is gonna be what the difference in who's flexible and who's more rigid, is going to be what is the big difference maker. Who's going to be able to find what they are hitting, obviously, but then who's going to be looking for that thing that's going to be easier to find, right? There's playing what you hit, and then there's playing what's good, and you got to find that balance, and that's where we're going to see the players come out on top.
Yeah, definitely interesting, and it's fun watching these players kind of work around. I know they talked about it on the cast as well, trying to work around these 5-cost units. What can you slot in? What can't you slot in? Is this 5-cost unit better than some others? I know we saw a lot of 5-cost units just being slammed because they're strong units in game 1. Game 2, it felt like a little bit less of that. It was more work towards your augment, get those key units in rather than the 5-cost. Do you think it's going to be more of that trend, sticking towards units that you specifically need, or do you think it is going to be this Bill Gates comps coming through that are just, all right, let's hit small amount of units and then slot in these 5-costs?
I think that we're going to see trends that we didn't really talk about so much last couple of weeks, but I think I did notice, is that as the games go or get later and later, as we hit, not so much game 3, but 4, 5, and 6, we're going to see people probably start, one, falling back on that comfort if they realize that flexing isn't working for them, right? And for a lot of people, that comfort is reroll comps, right? Because you hit it early, and if you can land on it, you just streak through the whole game, and then you take a top 4 and get out.
Yeah.
So I expect to see a few more. We saw one reroll talent. I think we're going to see a few more reroll comps. And there's a variety of them. I mean, Yumi's back. So. There's talent reroll. There's Lux reroll if you can hit it with the augment. There's Yumi reroll, which you don't even always need the augment for these days. No. And then really super sort of makes anything kind of work. Yeah, Jax is a little bit back in, maybe not A, S, or A tier, but maybe B tier.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if these reroll comps actually do start to show up. I think there's going to be a lot of them that have potential. We haven't seen too many of them yet. Last question, August. Are you nervous about your pick? Are you pretty happy with where you're at?
I want to took a 4th. I'm pretty chill. He's doing great. I think. Yeah, and honestly, it's funny. The characters, the players that we talked about at the top of the day are showing up like we did. Owen's showing up, Makaki's showing up, and Dan is not doing too bad himself. Took a 3rd and a 4th. He's still very much in it. I'm thinking that things are going to shake up a little bit like we expected, but I'm always looking for an upset.
We'll agree. With that, we'll see if there is going to be an upset. We're going to send it back over to the caster desk. Protroid, Alvaro this time. Send it back to you guys.
Hello. And now it is time for Game 3. There's been a lot of crazy stuff we've been experiencing so far on the Convergence, but we're not even a third of the way through. Once again, I'm Protroid. That's Alvaro. How are you feeling looking at all this right now?
With the new meta coming out pretty recently, there's like a lot of small changes, but a lot of the small changes add up and make some pretty big impact on exactly how the meta is looking, exactly what they were talking about. You can see that, a lot of people aren't really comfortable with what they're commonly used to playing. So, a lot of unexpected comps that can come out, it leaves room for creativity. All that stuff is great for the game of TFT. I'm hyped to see what's in store for the rest of these games.
Yeah, me too. And I mean, we have seen a lot of different adaptations too, right? Because you do have the AP tree that has been a little bit more of interest after these changes just because of the sure shot nerfs. And as a result, we're seeing some people starting to play with Talia, which is something I'm not used to seeing throughout the entirety of this set. You have Recon becoming a little bit bigger than it already was, and Soraka too, depending on your admin choices. However, you also have a pretty good shot if you stick with sure shots just because it's uncontested.
Yeah, Samira and Belveth were definitely the premier carry, especially if you were ever following kind of those tournaments like Corrupted Cup. That was easily probably the most played comp. It's really easy to flex in and out of. AP a little bit more complicated, a little bit less consistent, but now with all the AD nerfs, like you just said, and all the AP buffs, AP is definitely looking a lot stronger, and it's definitely leaving a lot of people to be a little bit dizzy at certain times.
Yeah, and with that, though, that's going to be our transition into the first carousel of the day. A highly offensive one, by the way, with swords, bows, and rods. Now, tell me, what are you looking to start with here? And do you like this glove start from Makake?
Was there a glove? Or was
I'm sorry, bow.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, bow is still, of course, solid item. Even though they did nerf AD, it's still very strong. Aphelios, he did take that hit on the Dusk Wave gun, but they got a massive buff on the Onslaught gun. So you can still look to cap out around Aphelios, and all those 5-cost units are still really strong. So if you can get to that point where you're able to field some of them, then you can still easily like win games from there. No tier on the carousel, which is super interesting. So if people are going to be flexing AP this game, then it's probably going to be a lot more difficult. If you want to play an AP comp, then you're probably going to have to end up like loose streaking to try and guarantee getting that tier off the first carousel. And if you cannot get that first tier, then some people that are trying to flex AP are going to have like a pretty difficult time.
It could mean that you see more people go towards the Talia instead of, say, for example, the Soraka or the Zoe, just because, again, Talia gets by just fine using the Shojin, while meanwhile the other two would really just prefer to have that blue buff, and the double tier is such a hard thing to find. I look at these items, though, from Dark Makaki here, and I just see that early quintessential AD start we've been talking about this entire set. The Last Whisper can be slammed pretty quickly just to get that armor reduction, and you have the Cloak just sitting off in the wings for some other kind of defensive frontline option.
Yeah, Dark Makaki is definitely sitting pretty here. He can definitely, he has a lot of options. Since he started bow, like you said, he can slam Last Whisper. He can even make Runeheads if he wants. And then any extra bows is always just going. He'll easily be able to find something that he can make with that second bow. So let's see. The first augment is gold here.
Yeah, and a bunch of interesting options, too. A quick scout around just to make sure, again, you're not pecking yourself into a corner. To me, that sort of says they might be looking at that laser core, but where do you think their focus is right now?
I'm not too sure, because I don't think laser core would be the strongest here. You can see that he doesn't even really have any laser core units. And, the strength of this laser core heart is easily, it's like a tempo comp, right? So it's very strong when you have it early, and then it falls off later. So I'm kind of interested in what he's going to do and like what his game plan is for why he's choosing this heart. I guess maybe with all the Zed buffs, maybe the comp isn't as it doesn't fall off as hard as we're used to.
Dot was talking about in the previous game how these days it seems like you are going to be trying to run just free laser core in order to activate the Zed, and then from there be able to just really go deep into those Zed stats. The thing that does scare me a little bit, though, is that you get that free pretty naturally between the Yasuo and the Zed for Duelist, and just throwing in the Sejuani, which is just a good all-around unit too. So I'm curious to see if this is a 5 laser core adaptation. I'm curious to see if this is potentially going for that 9-8 Exodia down the line, but still plenty of TFT to play, and unfortunately not too many of those laser core unit has been offered at this stage.
I think very quickly I saw 2 people with Gadgeteen spats, so that line it got a significant amount of buffs in this recent patch. They had buffed Lulu, they had buffed both Zoe and Nunu hero augments, and they added this newly crest that we can see here. So now you can not only just find the crest, but you can also find the heart. So you can really easily hit 5 Gadgeteen. And we can see right now that is a Gadgeteen crest versus a Gadgeteen crest.
Hey, I mean, it's a pretty scary thing, too, because when you're throwing the Gadgeteen crest on, that immediately counts as an item slot for the purposes of that Gadgeteen resistance and damage bonus calculation. So this is all a pretty scary thing to see. I would say that PH Dan is looking to sort of also make a statement at this stage. They want to make sure that Coach Mac knows, hey, this is my composition right now. What are you doing? But the other thing that you were touching on, and I want to try to explore a little bit deeper, is the fact that when you have this crest, you don't need to worry about that Nunu in the late game. You have access to Gadgeteen 5 without having to worry about hitting a stretch unit.
Yeah, that's why this opener is definitely significantly more consistent on this patch, because there's so many more outs. You can see both of these players had Lulu 1s. I mean, they both had Lulu 2s. And so they're thinking, it's like, okay, I can actually play around this Lulu unit because I have this 5 Gadgeteen out that is like more commonly going to be able to hit because of the addition to the added the Gadgeteen crest.
Yeah, and on top of that, too, if you do find that Nunu later, you can drop the Poppy, which I feel like has been the odd one out unless you can find that bigger, better buckler. Switching over to Gagamo, though, they have picked up the True Twos. It looks like that's where that Draven came from. Not quite the Draven items that I'd think of when I close my eyes and picture exactly what a Draven should be. But hey, item power is item power, and that's really all that Gagamo is going to need right now.
A Draven 2 is a Draven 2. JG still allowing his ability to crit. And actually, believe it or not, Draven is actually one of these AD units that actually has like decent AP scaling. I think it's because of earlier on in previous sets, Draven just for some reason had like they just wanted to give him more AD like damage with AP scaling. So his AP scaling actually isn't too bad. But Dan going for the spat here.
Hey, I mean, I'm really excited to see which way that is going to go here, just because, as we know, there's no way to construct a Gadgetzine emblem. You're just going to be stuck with that as it goes. But I could see a world where this is some kind of strange heart game if you were able to go that deep. But at the same time, I feel like this was going purely for that Gadgetzine 5. That's a lot of bonus power here. 12% per item instead of 3% at this stage. So I don't think anyone's getting through this to anyone.
I will say, this meta is definitely my meta because for the entirety of this set, I've started tier, so I know the AP line pretty well. And I was really curious why you went for Zoe here, because like you said, I think the most realistic option that you could go for in this type of comp is like an additional heart. But I mean, we can see that he doesn't have a single tier, but I mean, I'm now realizing that, he probably just went for it for this Zoe. This 5 Gadgetzine is a huge spike. You obviously get 2 Gadgetzine items, and then your entire team gets that extra damage reduction and damage amp.
Yeah, again, it does feel a little bit awkward with the spatula for now, but like we were talking, you find that random tier, you find another spat for a Tactician's Crown, which works great on Gadgetzine because who cares if it doesn't provide stats? It is an item slot for those resistances and bonus damage, so it all works out as it goes. I feel like at this point, if Dan really wants to start running away with this, they need to find some additional levels of their units, but that will come with time and perhaps a role here, there, anywhere. Switching over to Gagamo, though, they have been pretty proudly at Mr. 100 here with this pretty nice start from, as we talked about earlier, the True Twos.
Yeah, True Twos basically gives you 8 gold because you get 3 gold for the 1 cost and you get 5 gold for the 2 cost unit. And so, this is really exactly how you need to play this augment. You really need to be win streaking with it, because you can treat it like an econ augment, but you're getting less gold than like other econ augments. Rich get richer. And Three's Company, they give you a lot more gold. But True 2 is giving you that immediate 2-star 2 cost. Means that, of course, it's a lot easier to actually streak with it. So he's definitely trying to streak here, but it looks like he's not actually going to be able to get that 5 streak, dang.
Yeah, the defender frontline is very strong in so many early game cases just because you have this huge AD bent in the early game. However, when you're going against a full AP lobby like that, I think it's fair to spam that emote that you have right there. You're going to hit some pretty awkward positions. Zedge found it immediately slotted in there.
Yeah, I'm really curious what he's going to be playing in the late game with JG. He's got Rod, he's got Belt. Maybe, yeah, I mean, obviously, like the sky is the limit, but maybe he's thinking, I don't know, honestly.
Hey, it's a tricky kind of thing. There's plenty different room that this can try to go in the future. You can try to just completely switch over to a pure AP composition, see if it can depend on what your augments are. Maybe you get something that can help out with that mana gain problem. Maybe you even see something here. But they have the flexibility, I would say, that keeps them open.
Yeah, I think because he has so many defender units, right? I think the easiest unit to play alongside defender units is definitely Misfortune, because you can easily get the defender trait with Riven. But all of the other like AP carries, they really need like different front lines, which is half the reason why they were like not so good in previous metas, because their caps are very high. They can cap out really strong and they can easily win games, but the issue is that they're super reliant on specific front lines. And like if you're playing Talia, you really want like the Alistar, Annie, Echo front line, and we can see he doesn't have a single Annie, so it's going to be hard to pivot into that. Also, there's 2 other Gadgetzine players, so they're thinning that pool out for the Annies. And then if you want to play Soraka, you often can see Soraka in like some form of like a defender, a brawler front line, because it pairs with Blitzcrank and Sejuani so well. So yeah, it's going to be a tough spot for him to try and figure out what exactly he needs to like play
I
here.
did see them clear their board really quickly. So to me, that screen, they're trying to prep things in case they see the hero augment, just to try to get that extra chance. They did not, but it is going to be the hero augment at this stage. So defender and duelist is going to be the option. Heck, wait a minute, we are seeing a bit of a shift around before re-rolling. They might want to try to see if they can go for something more in the Oxforce family.
Yeah, I don't think this actually works. You can't actually
Influence
swap
after the first, yeah.
augments. Yeah. So he did find that Alistar there, but I think it was because of I mean, I think he already was just fielding Oxforce, maybe. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that just changed with the new patch. I know you couldn't do it previously, but I don't know how he would have gotten Alistar.
I'm not quite sure myself. And on top of the two, it's Behemoth Alistar, which does scare me a little bit here, because that's not exactly the most powerful thing that you think of in terms of any of these augments. So that just does generally hurt things at its core. Xanazurge has a couple of jacks here. The evasion is going to be quite useful against this full recon line here, preventing all this damage from being able to come through.
Yeah, lots of Jaxes here. I think what he was doing there was he's looking for the Viego. So I think, yeah, he has the Alistar front line, he has the JG, and then he has the Spark, so he's going to be looking to play the Viego here. Yeah, this guy has 4 Jaxes. Yeah, he's got a Jax too, and he's got a Riven too. He does have 0 gold though, so that's probably why. Looking to flex in 6 Brawler. You can see he has double tier, so he's looking to play the Brawler Soraka, Jax Soraka dual carry.
Yeah, I was going to say, this feels like such a blast from the past for me, because it's been a while since we've been able to see Jax and Soraka properly work together. Both of them have gone their separate ways. Soraka to bigger and better things, Jax to not. And so as a result of that, it feels weird getting back to this position where they can be working together in the same comp should they so desire.
Yeah, they definitely reverted a lot of the nerfs that they initially hit Jax and Brawlers with. That being said, the comp is definitely still not like S tier or even like A tier or anything. But I mean, if you're in a spot like this where you have, fully or like 2-star 3 costs and you already have 6 Brawler this early on, it's definitely is still extremely viable line. Just going to be really difficult for him to like win a game from this spot. He needs to really hit like both Jax and like Riven 3 and Soraka 2.
Yeah, and as you were sort of alluding to a bit earlier, the gold total that we're looking at right now does not exactly say, oh, I'm going to go to level 7 and start hitting some of these 3-star free costs. It kind of says that you're in big trouble.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that he has like a lot of HP, so we can imagine that he's just, he's going to be winning out for the entirety of this stage, and then he's probably going to start to like lose rounds in stage 4. And, conserving HP in stage 3 is really good, but I mean, obviously you take more damage the later on the game goes, so he's probably eventually going to like start bleeding out. And like I said, he really needs to like pray that he hits the Jax, because if you play 6 Brawler, you're basically committed at that point. It's really hard to pivot out of that comp, especially since the items that Jax uses, not very many other like units can flex around his items. So yeah, he's basically just praying for a top 4, which, at the end of the day, if you get a top 4, that's good enough. So,
especially this early on in the day too, because there's plenty of TFT to play. You can just sort of fall back on some of these earlier high-scoring games if you're able to. So, say for example, if you're and you had a very strong start in game 1, were able to take things out, I believe, at first place, and so from there, being able to just be able to rely on that and say, hey, it's okay if I do something riskier. It's okay that I'm on an 8-game loss streak. You can try to get back.
And we're looking at a Kaisa player here. They got multi-shot, and they also have metabolic accelerator. I think, is that what it's called?
Yes, it looks like that is, yeah.
So they're also, a lot of people in this lobby have, augments that are geared towards just trying to get a top 4. So it's like a really interesting dynamic, because if a lot of people are just trying to squeeze out a top 4, then who's actually going to end up getting the top 4? I imagine what we're going to end up seeing is there's probably going to be one person that's like leading the pack. Maybe this PH stand is going to just maintain his high health for the entirety of the game. And then a lot of people are going to be really fighting for those next top 4 placements. And then PH stand is probably going to be able to really easily turn this game into a win, because so many of the other players are just going to be, rolling so aggressively to combat these like these other players that are just trying to get that top 4.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see if the Gats team is going to be able to carry things through. I think a lot of that's going to rely on whether or not an early Nunu is found for PHJan. Switching over to here, though, like we were talking about, I think Owen at this point has been starting to find their legs just a little bit here. A small but still not nothing streak going into the Wolf round will help them as well, at the very least for morale. And from there, I think at this point, they just need to start thinking of how they're going to start hitting the rest of these recon units.
Yeah, he's out here winning rounds while he's pretty rich because you can see he's level 7 here. So normally you'd be probably like around 50, 60 gold on level 6, but being able to hit 35 on 3-6 is actually like pretty big, especially, yeah, like I said, when you're winning rounds. And I'm also down to talk about this Hodge item because Hodge recently got buffed trying to balance out its like its strength in comparison to Hextech Gunblade. Hextech Gunblade used to be 25% Omnivamp. It got nerfed to 22% just to make things a little bit more fair. The item definitely extremely strong. I think it was the most built item in the game, like by a significant margin. And they recently buffed Hand of Justice to instead start off with that base 15% 10% Omnivamp, and now it gives 15% Omnivamp. So I think a lot of people are more willing to build it. You can see that Kaisa player had it. You can see like the laser core guy is building it. It's probably just like one of the best items on, it's like that playing around crit like Kaisa, and like the laser core. He's probably gonna trying to build a crit on Zed later on.
Yeah, it's pretty useful. The one thing I'll say here, though, is that 4 recon is going to be giving you 100% crit, so it's not as helpful here as it could be. Yes, it ups the crit damage, but still isn't quite as much as you'd like to see. Meanwhile, looking across to see what PHJan has been up to, that's a power chord Sona doing a lot of work. That's going to be pretty hard to overcome with those free bans coming out, but an important thing to remember is that as there are less and less opponents, it's going to be harder to get the full use out of that.
Yeah, 4 recon does make it so that you already have 100% crit, but it also makes it so that your ability can crit. And since his ability can crit, Hand of Justice is like one of the better items to build in tandem with that because of like the added crit that it gives you. Because it just means that, if you don't have to build like JG or IE, then you're getting a lot more value out of the glove items. Okay, we can see the final augment of the game. So it's gold, hero gold, pretty common. Probably like the most average game. This is probably like the most games played of this combination here. Exiles or second wind. They're both really strong. You're just going to go for second wind there.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense too. If you were to stay at threat level maximum, you'd be in a position where you want to run a few more of these. And even though Recons is known for running that full threat stack, at this point you've hit basically every threat that you're going to want. You were instead wanting to roll on 7 just to see if you can hit a little bit more power. I do agree. I like this second wind a little bit better here.
Yeah, for sure. Second wind also, which is really strong in general. Pretty solid augment.
Yeah, we do also get to see, again, a little bit more what Makeki is doing here with that laser core crest that they started the game with. That has been going for a Zed that is going a little bit more, I think, into that laser core side of things. It's not usually that you see the Iron Strike being built on the Zed proper. Usually that's held by someone else, but I guess you want to get the drone damage deep. That's where you put it.
Yeah, I believe that's Spirit of the Exiles he got there, so that augment's still very strong. They did it. They did nerf it though. Laser Core definitely has been taking a massive hit. He also went for Stand United here. His build is not looking like the best build here because the Laser Core drones, they don't actually benefit from the stats that you get from Stand United. And since you want to hit those vertical laser core peaks, it's hard to stack traits in this comp because you either play 5 and have a lot less of a power spike with more traits, or you hit 7 and you have a bigger power spike, but then you have less traits and the stats aren't being utilized.
And that's how TFT can just go. And yeah, that's just how TFT can just go generally too, where you say, ooh, I don't like any of these augments, let me try re-rolling, and then you're just stuck with something even worse. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some kind of play like that on the part of Dark Macaque. However, they still have the time. And Roganus, by the way, I was going to say they hit this Wukong 3. I wasn't quite sure if it was going to be able to do all that much, but perhaps I've forgotten or at least suppressed these memories of what this can do in the mid game.
Yeah, I saw this Wukong 3 and I was like, oh, that was the True 2 guys that had 6 Wukongs, but no, it was a completely different guy somehow simultaneously hitting a Wukong 3 frontline. He must have stayed at lower levels to roll for that. It's definitely like a really strong strategy. I really like the fact or like the balance of this Wukong, because it's really not something that you can just go for every game. It really depends on 1, items, and then 2, if you just have been naturalling a bunch of Wukongs. But if you're in a spot where you just have like an excess of Wukongs and you can consider re-rolling for it, it's actually like a pretty strong strategy. So pretty cool that he employed it. He's employing it here.
But like with all 1 costs, though, remember, we are going to be expecting that to fall off. Hello, Urgot. Hello, Mordekaiser. What are you doing here? We never meet anymore. This is exciting, especially for Dark Macaque, who is, remember, our laser core player. They couldn't look to go a little bit more on the vertical side of things to get that going. And yeah, that's going to be a 7 laser core option.
Yeah, hitting this Mordekaiser here actually has just saved his game basically, because you really don't want to have to run Ashe to play 7 laser core. You don't even mind playing Renekton, because at the end of the day, there's not that many frontline units in this comp. And Renekton just has like a pretty high HP pool, so he actually utilizes the laser core like traits really well, because if he's taking a lot of hits, then he's shooting a lot of lasers. And on top of hitting a Mordekaiser, 1% chance, he also finds this Z2 in a couple rolls. His spot is it was looking pretty doomed, but like in a matter of 1 turn, it's actually turned completely around.
Hey, that's just how TFT can work sometimes. And Roganus, again, we saw a really strong Wukong last time, not so much this time. This is a round win again, as we sort of stage 4 versus stage 5, when I would expect to see that comp to fall off, especially when you don't have a hero augment at your disposal.
And if you're looking at his board right now and you're kind of curious why he has this this spark on his Zed, it's because the Zed, a lot of the damage is coming through from the lasers, and the spark just makes it so that every laser that procs on the Zed is just guaranteed to do significantly more damage because of the MR shred that it provides. You often see like people build like a semi-tank build, semi-heal build with Zed, especially in vertical laser core. I'm kind of he has a Spirit of the Exile in this Yasuo. I think he forgot to use it last round, but this round he used it. But it looks like he doesn't value it on his frontline units. I still think it's like pretty beneficial to use it on your frontline units. It does make it a little bit more difficult to position, because you have to commonly swap around a bunch of units if you're trying to move around things, but I don't know.
It also depends on who you really want to get the value out of it too, right? Because at the end of the day, it is attack speed. Yes, all laser core units love attack speed, but is Sejuani going to get most of her lasers from flipping her flail around or from just being hit? I think at the end of the day, it's going to be those getting hit kind of categories. So I kind of understand that sort of willingness to sacrifice it for those frontliners at the very least.
Yeah, the laser core units definitely can like utilize the getting hit aspect. So for units like Echo that don't even have the laser core attached, then I'm completely down for him to not always perfectly position.
And switching over here to Gagamo, who was, again, the player that we saw looking at going for the Viego, has now finally gone for it. And not to mention the fact that they've also been able to go for the Samira with an Oxforce emblem at this stage. So that's primed and ready for the eventual Aphelios that you'd really hope to find.
I really like this build here. It's pretty cool. He's just kind of like, he didn't even have that many units that resembled the Viego line. Like, this was the player earlier that had the Draven 2 and the Wukongs, and he was somehow able to just see this Viego line, and then he just made sure he held onto all the necessary units, and then down the line he also ended up hitting this Samira 2, and he's just playing around both of them perfectly. He's like pretty strong 3-item Viego here. This 2-item Samira, and his comp is also coming together. This game is looking like it's going to come down to like some really close matches to see who can top 4.
And this isn't anything new, too. Like, we've been seeing people running Viego and Samira for a little while, partially because, again, Samira is just insane, or has been insane for the majority of this set so far. But the other thing that I'm looking at here is going to be, again, that Oxforce item, just because, remember, everyone focuses on the fact that Oxforce is going to be delaying death, giving you that 1 second of a reprieve. It's also bonus attack speed, too, that Samira loves and Aphelios loves if you're able to find him at this stage, which, again, 4% odds, better than 7, but still not exactly a guarantee. So we'll have to see exactly where Gagamo's luck, if they're able to pull out any Mortdog favors. But again, it's a tricky thing to see.
Oh wow, he actually last minute swaps in the Aegis because he really thinks that the extra MR to his entire team is going to be better than this Fiddlesticks, even though it's a Vi 1.
Yeah, that's a really tricky thing to see. And this is something that I've been curious about, if Vi is able to pick up any kind of extra priority just because of the prevalence of these AP compositions. That said, though, this one is looking just like Brawlers, and also like it doesn't matter at all. Ace has just always been really good at dealing with some of these chunkier targets because you can ignore a flat percent off of their health.
And you can see that Jax player that we were following earlier, he had 4 Jaxes on 3-2, and he only had 6 Jaxes, so it looks like he definitely was not hitting.
Yeah, again, it's just a tricky sort of thing to be able to piece through, as Roganus, by the way, goes down in 8th place. And we are starting to see a bit of contention as well. Moldiver Maniac, also in addition to Gagamo, decide to try to go for this Viego line, something that I feel like everyone seems to be in agreement has gotten much weaker over the course of the last 2 patches. That said, though, we are going to be switching back into this fight here. Coach Mac has also been running the 5 gadget scene. At this point, has the Nunu, so able to get a little bit more power in their corner. However, I'm not sure if it's going to be quite enough for what is to come. Samira just has so much damage. Fiddlesticks is able to disrupt and really slow down the tempo of a lot of these fights. And with all those things together, not even Soraka is enough to save the day.
Yeah, I was going to point out, you can see how whenever he's choosing to move his Viego, he's also choosing to move his other frontliners in tandem with the Viego. I think a lot of people, when they're choosing to position their boards, their main focus is on, oh, where does my carry need to be? But you need to realize that your frontline units are also, most of the time, just as important as your carry. And the reason why he's same siding his Fiddlesticks as his Viego is so that, if the Fiddlesticks ends up taking aggro, there's a lot higher chance that he's going to be, stunning units that are near Viego to make sure that Viego has a higher chance of staying alive.
Hey, double Viego appears in the shop. That is going to be exciting. Although, again, I'm not quite sure if we are going to have the chances out of Viego 3. It's just a little bit too risky, I think, for the current state of this board.
I mean, with his HP, he's definitely going to be staying level 8 for probably the rest of the game. You can see he's selling his Viegos here. The reason why he's rolling down so deep here is because one Leona massively spikes his board. It allows him to fit 3 Aegis, and he can drop this Silas.
Yeah,
also
Silas. Yeah, Silas is just going to be a little bit wonky, but hey, who knows? This might be where a bunch of these units re-enter the pool in this Viego versus Viego fight between Moldiver and Gagamo. Lots of fiddles just immediately go down, but it's not going to be enough to take out the Samira, that secondary carry that we were talking about. She's doing everything she can, but I just feel like that itemization on the Viego is a bit stronger, combined with the fact you already have the Aphelios for the Moldiver. Moldiver is going to be sticking around a bit longer, but Xanazurge is the one that goes down.
Yeah, you can see how the lobby kind of winds up here. Oh, there we go. He found the Leona. You can see this is exactly what he was looking for. All he needs is just find the Aphelios, and then he can probably sit until, future turns. But yeah, I was talking about how you can see exactly how the lobby is winding up here. You can see PH Dan has a massive health lead on the entirety of the lobby, and then a lot of the rest of the players are fighting for the this top 4 placement.
Yeah, and it seems like there's going to be some players like Gagamo, Dark Makaki that are now trying to do whatever they can to fight in there as well. Both players very low here, doing everything they can. Makaki, though, has still been riding pretty high off of the fact they were able to get that early Mordekaiser. This fight, though, will be close. I think it's going to be the Ox Force that makes the difference. Makaki is still going to survive. This is absolutely huge. Remember, we're talking about players. As Moldiver Maniac goes down, I have to call that out really quickly. We are talking about players that have been doing fairly well. Makaki is someone who's been finishing top 2 in these past couple lobbies. They have the safety net, but every additional placement they can claw through here means they have to use less and less of it.
Yeah, so the Jax player went down, and we can see that there's like the Gadgeting player, Viego player, Laser Core player, and then I think the other Gadgeting player, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this goes to show on how strong this Gadgeting crest might be. I mean, obviously one of the players has the chance of bot 4ing, but the other player was able to have like a really strong streak off of this. Oh, we get an Ornn Anvil.
So this means that everyone needs to scout really quickly after this, just in case someone decides to get a rat hook out of this, as that can be a complete difference maker to any kind of carry. I don't think any Samira wants to be pulled out from the safety of their corner. Another thing that dropped here for Dark Makaki specifically, though, is that Champion Duplicator. It means they can now get the Mordekaiser 2 without having to roll anything here. They're instead going to take their chances, see what they can find in the shop.
I'm wondering if they're going to Mana Zane the okay, no, they're just going to Mana Zane Sejuani.
And I like that too, because I was on the same wavelength as you. I was thinking, ooh, Mordekaiser, double the buildings, but the stun from the Sedge doubled up can be quite effective as well. PH Dan is going to be the combat here, top of the lobby versus the top, so we're going to have to see exactly which way it's going to go. Zed is already on the backline carry, so that should be useful. However, it seems like the fact that stun is going to be coming through, that's going to slow things down. Things are so close here. There's no health left on that unit. However, it's not enough. Makaki goes down potentially to 5th place. Looks like that is going to be where it's going to go as these other fights are wrapping up here. Their first bot 4 finish. Heck, I'm going to so far as to say first finish outside of the top 2 that they've really had to suffer through.
I was going to say there's a bit of a miscalculation there because they leveled to 9 and then they didn't have enough gold to buy a single unit in the shop. So they were level 9, but they're fielding only 8 units.
Yeah, that's one of those tricky things where they want to try to make this huge push in order to get the additional board power here. But as you said, they decided to put in the Sejuani 2. They didn't have any other options after that because also we saw a misfortune in that shop that deactivates the ace. It just, again, everything in that shop just had something bad going for Dark Makaki. But hey, they have that safety net. They have time to go. Coach Mac, meanwhile, they're sitting on 1 HP, also sitting on 6 Sorakas. We're going to have to see if that's going to be enough to take them out of this fight here with PH Dan. Again, still in a scary position. These are the 2 Gadgeting players that we were talking about earlier on in the day, with one of them, by the way, not even going for a proper gadget. Both of them actually not going for a proper Gadgeting carry, both sticking to the heart side of things. And it looks like off the back of this 3-star Sona, that's just going to be a helpful thing for PH Dan as Gagamo also goes down, and our top 2 is Owen and Dan.
You can see exactly how this spatula that you got earlier in the game was converted. You can see he went for 2 heart spats. He was able to get heart through his final augment, and then he made one of the spats into a heart. So he's able to fit 5 Gadgeting, 4 Spellslinger, and 4 heart all on the same board. Like this is insane. And yeah, like you were talking about earlier, where they're not going for conventional Gadgeting carries, but I think that's like pretty common because the Gadgeting, even though they do get damage resistance and damage bonus, a lot of the benefit in the trade is from those items.
Ooh, sorry, there's a big thing happening in this fight. You had the immediate cast the Sona. That immediately triggers the Fiddlesticks into this heart backline, so that means it's going to be even harder for these heart stacks to stack up. Well, meanwhile, if you look on the other side, Owen's Kaisa has been going absolutely berserk in that backline. We don't even have any shots going onto her from the Sona, so that means Owen's going to continue this streak. And if you're either of these players, you're really happy to be here because both of you are succeeding at the same level that Dark Makaki is going down in a bot 4. Owen, remember, walked away last game with a first place. The game one with first place, in game two with a fourth. And meanwhile, PH Dan has been going for that pretty consistent fifth, fourth meat shot. So both of them hitting this point total here is going to be amazing for their futures in this tournament.
There's a third heart spat from Carousel.
Yeah, this is ridiculous.
He's trying to fit in. He now has 6 heart with this Lee Sim. He has to drop a Talia too. I don't know. This is going to be a tricky turn to try and figure out exactly how he should be making his capped board. I guess 4 heart definitely is probably like the bigger spike because Talia with no items isn't really doing too much, and you're getting a lot more AP stacking considering you have Mana Zane, Zoe, blue buff, Sona. Many units that are like just really casting so many times.
Another thing too, really quickly, the Zephyr did with that fight. PH Dan was able to save the Soraka that little bit longer, so that is going to be helpful. But again, it's not going to be enough. They're making all these little adaptations here to try to see what they can do against Owen, but it's not enough at this stage. It looks like they're thinking they have just enough HP to survive one more round. They're going to risk it and try to go for the level 9 at this stage.
Yeah, I think you would have to get legitimately 8-0'd to die here. I'm pretty sure if you got 7-0'd, he'd take 21, maybe 22. But realistically, with a Sona 3, he's going to kill at least 1 or 2 units. So I don't think he's too scared of dying. But yeah.
It's so hard to position with that Sona with the Zephyr too, because you want to make sure everyone adjacent is still making full use out of that effect. The 6 heart is still in play for PHJ, and they're doing everything they can to get that AP stacking early. But you have a Cho'Gath slowing things down. That's going to really throw a wrench into a lot of plans. While meanwhile, again, Kai'Sa keeps autoing. There isn't anything that Dan can do. We are still looking at, again, a lower loss. This should be bad, but not the worst. At single-digit HP, we're going to see a creep round. We're going to see stage 7, but after that, Dan's in trouble.
Yeah, but the thing is, this is exactly how Dan is like utilizing his HP lead. He knows that he's not going to be able to beat this Kai'Sa player because of how strong he was able to cap out. Rammus 3, Kai'Sa 3, 4 recon, really good items. So instead of trying to just donkey roll to make the strongest board to squeeze out one winning round, instead he sacks the entirety of the second half of stage 6. So that maybe he can get to level 9 and find like a unit that actually can make the difference. And then if he can close that gap, then maybe he can actually continue to win every round. Now, obviously, it's a big gap to close, but I still think it's the correct play.
What unit do you think that is, out of curiosity?
It's definitely some sort of 2-star 5 cost, probably like a 2-star Fiddlesticks, maybe a 2-star Nunu. Nunu would be huge because since he has 6 heart, he can rearrange his board in a way where he can end up dropping Lulu or Poppy for the Nunu, and then Nunu's really strong against these Kai'Sa comps because if Nunu gets to the backline, then the recon units are forced to just keep constantly dodging around. But I don't think he ended up finding even a Nunu 1, let alone a Nunu 2.
He did find an Urgot too, so that should be helpful for at least something here at their level 9 board. Also enough to further stun up the recons without having to worry about anything too crazy happening. Unfortunately, though, again, this might not be enough at this stage. Soraka not read by the Cho'Gath. That means you have a few more chances for autos. More CC flies through thanks to the Janna Tornado, but again, nothing is enough here. This board is just way too dang strong as Owen gets their 2nd win of this series.
Yeah, when you hit that 3-star Kai'Sa, I mean, the thing about hard comps is that you really need to stall for as long as possible, but Kai'Sa is so good at just tearing through front lines, especially with the carry hero augment, especially with those items, especially with 4 recon, especially with windy weather. Like, he just didn't have enough stall, to realistically get to those like overtimes where those heart units can really start putting in that work.
And yeah, it's exactly as you're saying. Like, Hart is trying to get that AP as an eventuality. That's what we saw the move in from the 6 over the spell slingers that are more about upfront AP, trying to make sure you have that, I think, at 4 plus 60 AP immediately in order to really get the ball rolling in the first place. But again, nothing that we saw was just enough for Dan. But if you look at the scores, I have to say that's pretty much all they really needed to do at this stage. That 7-pointer is going to be enough to get them a pretty firm spot in the top 4, which is beginning to break away quite a bit from the bottom 4. 19 to 18 is where we're seeing things over on that side of things. So meanwhile, it's 11 to 3 on the back half of this score line. So again, Dan has now achieved where we're doing here at the halfway point of the day. There's still plenty of TFT to play, so we could still see some crazy upsets. But to talk us through all those potential possibilities, we have Honey Bear at the analyst desk.
Welcome back, everybody. We're on the analyst desk. I am joined by Lawrence himself. Welcome, Lawrence. We got some updates going on. You want to walk us through those?
Yeah, so I'm obviously not everyone's here from the players, but those that are and people that are watching, this is, I'm going to be honest, it is unplayable. It is affecting a lot of the gameplay, and for game 1, we're going to allow it to still stand, but at future dates, we'll be erasing games 2 and 3. I know that is very unfortunate for players such as like the players that got first and second, but it's just like that was the game state, and I think it affected it completely. Xanadurge in particular, I think could have had a very easy top 2, if not a first, likely first. I think that's unacceptable and not something I'm willing to have in anything that I'm running. So that's, I think, what we're going to be doing moving forward. Yes. Very unfortunate, but
yeah, this was a unanimous decision by the staff. Everyone fully agrees with this decision. It is an awful situation. We hoped that we weren't going to be in this. Conversations around this actually started this morning, even before the game started, and this just happens to be the unfortunate spot that we find ourselves in. It is an unplayable state, especially since there are big stakes on the line. And again, as we stated before, and we will continue to state again, competitive integrity is extremely important to us, and we want to make sure we uphold that at every single point possible. So with a heavy heart, we are going to have to postpone these games. And it sucks. It sucks for everybody involved. But we will put on the absolute best product that we can moving forward. Now, some of you might be wondering, well, how is this going to affect ACL tomorrow? At the current moment, we are unsure how it will be affecting them. We will be working tonight, tomorrow morning, to make sure that we have all of the information that we need to make whatever choice we choose. And so moving forward, just stay involved in the Discord. If you guys are interested in watching the ACL, or if you happen to be one of the 8 players, make sure you stick around in the Discord. Feel free to DM us with any questions and or concerns, and we'll happily address those as they come in. But just once again, extremely unfortunate situation. And thank you so much for working with us, all the players, staff, viewers, everybody who's involved. Oh, Lawrence, any closing statements for us?
Yeah, I mean, you basically summarized it. I'm talking with the players right now, so I wasn't able to listen to everything you're saying, but huge
you
agree.
Listen to me?
Sometimes. Yeah,
this is
I guess I'll
day,
kind of,
man. This is every day.
I'll parrot it again. Is that it just was a really unfortunate situation. People are asking what had happened. There is a disconnect bug. People will disconnect and then they cannot rejoin. And then also items will disappear, or units with items on them will disappear, and they can't be sold, used. So you effectively just can't make an item, and that can heavily affect how the games turn out. Even like 1 or 2 placements means a lot here in these finals, because people win and lose, or like make their tiebreakers at all points, and there's money involved with this. I really feel it's unacceptable to kind of move forward with this. So I'm assuming that we can make it work next Saturday, but we'll try to find an exact date and sort out how we want to go forward with this. Again, really unfortunate. I think it's really crappy that we have to make a decision like this, but it's better than playing this out, I think, at this point. So, and also, I guess I'll add that if we're dropping game 2, I think that we should also drop game 3 as well, because game 2 is very clearly affected by bugs, and game 3 also was affected by bugs, which might have moved 1 placement, and I think again that does affect the total points. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we will be keeping game 1 and then moving forward from there at a later date. But once again, everybody, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for working with us. Really appreciate you guys. We will put on the best product we possibly can. We will be live again with the AML broadcast. We will not just be letting it go, just so everybody is aware. But once again, thank you so much. That is it for us today. But we will see you guys hopefully tomorrow for the ACL. But if not, we'll see you for the podcast, because we can't go anywhere. We're stuck here.
There's no bugs for the podcast.
There's no
so
podcast bugs, as far as I know. Cross your fingers.
rage.
Ooh.
Alrighty.
All right, but again, thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out, everybody.
Plus kid, plus.